Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. Former U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts Donald Stern, who served under Bill Clinton, will join us. He'll discuss the Trump nominee for Attorney General Matt Gaetz, who would run the very agency that investigated Gaetz for sex trafficking a minor, and what he's likely to do if he is able to take over.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we open the lines to discuss wall-to-wall Trump coverage. Can you take the 24/7 CNN-style breathlessness for the next 4 years, or are you taking a different route? And would you like us to take a different route, too? Perhaps by interspersing our news coverage with more live music down at the Boston Public Library. Our guest today, by the way, singer-songwriter Juliet Lloyd. All that ahead, Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Donald Trump's re-election is raising questions about the U.S. role in global climate change initiatives. Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm is at the World Climate Summit in Azerbaijan. She says the world will keep shifting to cleaner sources of energy no matter who's in the White House. NPR's Michael Copley has more.
Granholm touted a climate law passed under President Biden called the Inflation Reduction Act that's delivering big investments, including in Republican districts. She also said companies, along with states and cities, will keep taking steps to cut U.S. climate pollution and called on other nations to strengthen their efforts.
This is the time to accelerate, to fill that gap that may be left by leadership in the United States.
President-elect Trump says he'll adopt policies to boost U.S. production of fossil fuels, the main source of heat-trapping emissions. And activists expect he'll pull the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Michael Copley, NPR News.
Investors in the stock market have seen some gains since the election, but investors in the bond markets are more worried. NPR's Raphael Nam says bond investors are concerned about President-elect Trump's economic plans.
Although Trump has promised to lower inflation, many bond investors believe he could actually do the opposite. Take tariffs. Trump is proposing a wide range of tariffs, and the U.S. imports a lot of things. Tariffs obviously make those things more expensive. Trump also wants to cut taxes. All of that could make the country's finances a lot worse. And they are already pretty bad. The budget deficit in the last fiscal year was $1.8 trillion, the third highest on record.
NPR's Raphael Nam reporting. The group Human Rights Watch has released a wide-ranging report on the mass displacement of Palestinians in Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza. It says Israel is using starvation as a weapon of war in Gaza. NPR's Ruth Sherlock says the report captures how Gazans are being forced to survive in desperate conditions and with little access to food.
The Human Rights Watch report says, according to the laws of war, Israel is required to ensure the health, nutrition and safety of the population it displaces in its conflict with Hamas. Israel, though, has dramatically restricted what aid can enter Gaza since the Hamas-led attack last year. The Human Rights Watch report cites Israel as saying these restrictions are necessary to choke off Hamas's military apparatus. But in the ensuing humanitarian crisis, the vast majority of Gazans are experiencing high levels of acute food insecurity, according to the IPC, a classification system by world experts on hunger. Human Rights Watch says children have died from malnutrition and dehydration. Israel denies it's using starvation as a weapon and says it's recently increased the number of aid trucks that can cross into Gaza. But aid groups working in Gaza say what's being allowed through is not nearly enough. Ruth Sherlock, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
On Wall Street, the Dow is down 318 points. The Nasdaq is down 2%. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Former U.S. House Speaker John Boehner spent some time in the Moakley Federal Courthouse in Boston yesterday as part of the ongoing Steward healthcare bankruptcy situation. At issue were allegations of fraud, bribery, and corruption within Steward. Boehner, who served as Speaker of the House from 2011 to 2015, is a current member of Steward's Board of Directors. Spent about 2 hours in that courthouse, but the Globe reports the nature of the visit was unclear. Steward pulled out of Massachusetts following its bankruptcy. Barnstable County provides low and no-interest loans to residents who need help paying to fix or replace their septic systems or hook up to municipal sewers. That loan program, called Cape Cod Aqua Fund, just got a $13 million cash infusion. Program manager Brian Baumgartel thanked the county commissioners at a meeting this week for taking the final steps to secure that money.
that program has seen record amounts of projects coming in, records amount of money going out the door. We're seeing big projects, we're seeing small projects. It's all really across the board. So it's obviously a very much needed service.
You can apply for a loan through AquaFund and see a full list of eligibility requirements on the county website capecod.gov. In sports, the Bruins and the Celtics off tonight. Both are in action tomorrow at the Garden. The Bruins have the day game, the Celtics have the night, and the Patriots host the LA Rams at Gillette on Sunday. Sunny, upper 50s today. We're at 48 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Procter & Gamble, maker of ZzzQuil, with a range of products designed to relieve occasional sleeplessness to help people fall asleep. Learn more at ZzzQuil.com. This is NPR.
Here's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. Thank you. Live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Good morning, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. How are you?
I'm hanging in.
I'm sorry I asked. I'm fine, too. Later in the show, food superstars Billy Costa and Jenny Johnson will be here with their new cookbook. Right on the 50th anniversary of busing, we spoke to a panel involving former Mayor Kim Janey, the NAACP's Michael Curry, and Ted Landsmark. And they're going to be returning today to continue that conversation at noon and talk about equity in a whole host of areas. Gold Dust orphan Ryan Landry about his Christmas play, and at the bottom of the hour, a spectacular singer who got her start here, actually. Juliet Lloyd is going to perform, and we'll talk to her, too. But we're starting the show with President-elect Trump's nomination of Matt Gaetz for Attorney General, a man who resigned from the House of Representatives this week, days before the House was supposed to release a report on allegations that Gaetz engaged in sexual misconduct and illicit drug use, among other things. He'd be set to run the Department of Justice, the same agency that was investigating sex trafficking involving underage girls by Matt Gaetz, though no indictments were brought. We're joined now to discuss all this on Zoom by Donald Stern. He is the former U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts under President Clinton, serving under then Attorney General Janet Reno. Don Stern, it's good to see you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jim. I'm Landry.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. So what do you think about the President-elect's suggestion or appointment or hopes nomination, whatever, that Matt Gaetz is going to run the Department of Justice?
Well, this is a family-friendly show, so I have to be careful how to respond. It's unthinkable, unbelievable, and reckless is the way I would sum it up.
What can he do that scares you the most as the Attorney General?
Well, first of all, I don't think he's qualified for the position by training and certainly by temperament and management ability. The thing that scares me the most is his agenda going in. Now, to some extent, it reflects the agenda of the president, but I think Gaetz will do it if he's confirmed with a kind of intensity and fury and disregard for the facts that exist in a particular case in a way that's probably unprecedented.
Well, the expression that's been used repeatedly that I'm sure you've heard, Don Stern, is he would be there to exact retribution against those who've done Donald Trump wrong. And I don't really know what that means. I mean, he's talked about dumping the FBI. He's talked about firing thousands of people. I think there are 100,000+ people in the Justice Department, many of whom are civil servants. He's talked about indicting Jack Smith, the special counsel, Liz Cheney, people like that. What of those things does he have the power to do?
Well, first of all, I think he probably has less power to get rid of career employees of the Department of Justice than he thinks he has. The Department of Justice really isn't under civil service, but there are certain built-in protections which protect longtime employees. Of course, those could be changed. They're not really by statute, so presumably some of it could be changed. The thing that really bothers me is, and I was reminded of then President Trump's, this will sound like a non sequitur, but then President Trump's discussion over the telephone with Zelensky from Ukraine essentially, it doesn't matter if we ultimately get a conviction. It's just the investigation that matters. And I think what Gates will do in going after enemies of the president, or enemies of Gates for that matter, will be commence an investigation, exact retribution by way of the trauma and cost and expense and humiliation of being the target of investigation, which, by the way, Gates knows well because he has been the target of a criminal investigation. And whether ultimately there will be a conviction, I think will matter less than the fact that it was done. Now, how much of that he'll get away with, it's unclear. There are some guardrails within the Justice Department, good people who I hope will stick around, that may prevent some of the worst excesses from happening. But one thing's to be that's sure, he'll try. He'll try very hard.
You know, you mentioned people staying around to prevent the worst excesses. We heard that a lot in the first term of Donald Trump, whether it was the generals or people that were close to him said they were trying to prevent his doing the worst possible things. That's kind of a hard role to play, isn't it? To
Very, very hard.
Yeah.
And I certainly would understand why people would want to leave, but I hope that many of them don't. You know, there's a little bit of history in the U.S. Attorney's Office here that you two probably remember, and it goes back to Frank McNamara. So you may remember, and I may be off a year or two, it was probably 88 or 89, Frank McNamara was acting U.S. Attorney, and he falsely accused prior U.S. Attorney Bill Weld, who was then head of the criminal division, of smoking pot at a party, and also tried to start an unwarranted and criminal investigation against then Governor Dukakis. The reason I thought of that is that some 30 AUSAs in the office at that time wrote an open letter disclosing what McNamara had done and essentially protesting it. It's conceivable that some similar actions could happen. Now, whether they'll ultimately have an impact, I don't know. But there are some good people in the Department of Justice that are not going to commence an investigation just because they're asked.
And they'll probably get fired when they refuse to do it. I mean, isn't that...
And they may get fired. They may get fired. And whether ultimately that will have any impact, hard to know. But you know, the alternative is that people start leaving in droves. And again, I at the emotional level, I understand why people would want to do that. But leave in droves and then provide no protection for the guardrails that currently exist in the Department of Justice.
Yeah, when you mentioned an allegation of smoking pot with former Governor Weld before he was Governor Weld, I'm thinking, how quaint compared to sexual abuse, rape, insurrection, business fraud, but obviously that doesn't matter anymore. Last thing from me is we've all heard that if Trump is convinced that he can't get someone like Gates confirmed by 50 plus one senators, and obviously the one could be the break the tie, could be Vice President Vance, he wants to make a recess appointment. What impact, in your estimation, would Gates, as Attorney General, as a recess appointee, have that might be different if he was actually confirmed by the Senate, Don Stern?
I'm not sure day to day it's going to have much of an impact. He'll still have all the powers of the Attorney General, whether he's a recess appointee or he goes through the confirmation process. I think the rumors swirling about him and about the investigation about his past will, however, be more, not less dominant unless he goes through a confirmation process and the senators can actually review the evidence and make a decision.
Before you go, is this the worst nomination, the worst Attorney General nomination of your adult life?
I never thought there'd be a nomination that would make me yearn for the days of Bill Barr and Jeff Sessions. But
you know,
two attorneys general for the first Trump administration, for those who don't recall. I'm sorry, Margaret.
You know, just one last thing from me. You hear a lot about the United States' ability to withstand constant attacks on its departments of justice or education or whatever it is. So what do you think? Can if Gates does get this or someone else gets this that is bound and determined to bring down the Department of Justice, where is it in 4 years? I mean, how much?
You know, I don't know. I guess I have some, lingering and important faith in the Constitution and the history of this country. You know, my wife and I just came back from a little road trip, and one of the places we stopped was at Gettysburg. Oh. And I'm sure you've been there, and it's a very sobering moment to sit on that battlefield and to understand what happened there. And so this country has been through a lot, and I think we can get through this as well, but it's going to be a painful 4 years. And as a alum of the Department of Justice, and I know I speak for a lot of people who have gone through the department and come out the other end, it's going to be very sad to see any further erosion of the Department of Justice.
Hey, Don Stern, we really appreciate your time. Hope to talk to you again soon. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much. We have been speaking with former United States Attorney for Massachusetts, Donald Stern, who served under Attorney General Janet Reno in the Clinton administration. We very much appreciate his time. Okay, after a quick break, we're opening up the phone and text lines. It is your chance to weigh in on our programming here at Boston Public Radio. We're looking ahead at 4 more years of Donald Trump and 4 more years of breakneck, breathless, exhausting, outraged news coverage. So we want to know, will you be tuning in all things Trump this time around, or joining what's increasingly called the Great Tuning Out? Is this what you want to hear from us, or would you rather hear, I don't know, am I the a-hole 5 days a week, 3 hours a day? Stick around. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
For decades, Okinawa, Japan has had a reputation for longevity, where people live mysteriously long lives. But the reasons may have less to do with lifestyle and more to do with bad record keeping. I'm Carol Hills. The real story about quality of life and longevity in Okinawa. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And MIT Federal Credit Union, helping members get started on their savings journey with the MIT Federal Credit Union Starter Savings Account, federally insured by NCUA. Membership's open to the general public. More at mitfcu.org. And the Huntington Theater with Sojourners. A young Nigerian couple arrives in Houston in 1978 to earn their degrees, but the unplanned events that occur will ripple across generations. Now through December 1st. huntingtontheater.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marge Regan, live at the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. In about 20 minutes, Juliet Lloyd, who again started her career right here at Berkeley down the street, is going to perform for us and talk. That'll lift somebody's spirits here, I think. And at noon, we'll be joined by a panel including former Mayor Kim Janey, the NAACP's Michael Curry, and Ted Landsmark. Our text prompt of the day at 877-301-8970. Marjorie's going to read these not right before the 1 o'clock news today, but right after. With Trump's win and everything that comes with it, news of Elon Musk, leading his new Department of Government Efficiency, hordes of people are fleeing Twitter for greener pastures. Are you? Have you quit his social media platform, and why? And if not, why not? And again, it's 877-301-8970. For the next couple of minutes, as Marjorie said, it's your chance to weigh in on how we do things here in Boston Public Radio for the next months and years. How do you want Marjorie, me, and our team on this show to talk about and cover the soon-to-be 47th President of the United States? Wall-to-wall coverage, whatever happens every day, covered every day, or focus more on other things like the state legislature operating in secret or overriding a ballot question. We'll get to that on Monday. Other kinds of topics, parenting, housing, and of course, our ultimate chestnuts like real and fake Christmas trees. In any case, what do you want us to be doing for the next months and years at 877-301-8970? There is a fabulous story, Marjorie, in New York Magazine. It's written by Charlotte Klein. The title of it is Who Wants to Cover the Second Coming of Trump? And they talk about how some of the best reporters in America who covered Trump 1.0 don't want to do it again, tied to the fact that a lot of major news institutions are laying off people, so they don't even have the person power to do adequate coverage. So one half of me says the responsible thing is to cover all of it because it affects all of us every single day. the other side of me says, I don't know if we can all take this,
Well, and what's really discouraging is that places that have really done a good job, not a perfect job, but a good job on fact-based reporting, if either people don't believe it or they don't care. And I was thinking, I said to you this morning, we were getting our coffee, all these things, RFK, we all may have measles soon, with RFK, with his anti-vax things, and who knows what Matt Gaetz, taking a break from his alleged drug-fueled sex parties, may be doing at the Department of Justice. Who knows if he gets in? But I don't think it matters to people who just voted for Trump if it was all about the price of eggs and the border.
That should determine what we do.
Well, I'm just saying,
what people say they care about.
It's part of the discouragement.
Oh, it is part of the discouragement.
It's really hard to be a newspaper reporter. I was one for many years. It's really hard. You got to get it right. You got to go out and do the reporting. You got to get the stories. You got to talk to sources. You got to do all these things, and you write these great exposés about the things that Trump has done, and it doesn't matter. So it makes you feel like you're riding into a vacuum. You're just riding into a vacuum, it gets sucked up, goes out the other side, and nobody reads it. And I think that's very disheartening. And I think it's very disheartening to talk about Trump right now all the time, because what can we do? We had this massive women's march. I was there. So everybody wore the pussy hats down there.
Yeah, it was after the election. It should have been before the election.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it would have mattered either way. It was the largest demonstration we have ever had down there.
So what, do you give up?
I'm not saying you give up. I'm just trying to explain people's frustration in thinking that it doesn't matter.
877-301-8097. Here's an interesting anonymous texter. He or she is voting for lots of Trump coverage and says lots of Trump coverage and Am I the A-hole are not mutually exclusive. That's a
that's a good point. Every week it could be the president-elect and what he's done, and ask if he is the a-hole, or if Matt Gaetz is the a-hole, or if it's RFK that's the a-hole.
Okay,
we can do that.
Peter Nakar, you're first on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, thanks. Jim and Marjorie, thanks for what you're doing. So I grew up in New York. I came of age with Donald Trump, and I've always thought he was a putz. So now I just can't stop reading about him. So during the election, I took a moratorium. I tried not to read anything, and I'm an avid news reader. I found the news to be boring. I think I need a 12-step program. Can you give me a referral how I can wean myself off of reading about Donald Trump?
Yeah, I know you're saying that, but is that really what you want to do? I mean, I can say that too. I need a break. But is that really what you want to do if you care about the state of things? And I know it's not easy. It's not easy for us, and we get paid to do this. But is that really what you want to do, Peter?
What I really want to do, Jim, is read about the people who voted for him. I want to meet more people. I want to talk more people. Great. I want to come out of my bubble, and I want to understand what the hell happened to our country.
Yeah.
Peter, that was a hell of a line. Thank you. And I think that's a beautiful sentiment that everybody should follow. Peter, thank you much for the call. 877-301-8970.
I was listening to Bernie Sanders on my favorite podcast, which is Daily, which is a great way to hear the news when you're driving or walking around and cleaning your house or whatever. And he was talking about the slowness of the bureaucracy, because a lot of the great things that Biden did, nobody feels them yet because they're not happening. Why couldn't we lower prescription drugs right away? Why couldn't we say $2,000 a month cap on Medicare right away? Why do we have to wait from whatever it was, 2023 to 2026? So right now, Donald Trump has inherited an economy that's getting better. I know people are still struggling. I'm not saying that's not happening.
A lot of infrastructure was shovel ready, as they say. It's happened. It's got little signs that says brought to you by by whatever the infrastructure law is called.
Yeah,
and Joe Biden.
Does it say and Joe Biden,
I
or
don't
does
know.
it
That's
say
a good
the
point.
infrastructure?
I don't know that.
I mean, if Trump was smart enough to put his name in all those checks that went out. So my point is that the economy is getting better now, just like Obama left the economy in much better shape when Trump came in. So the person's going to get the credit for all this happening now. It's not Joe Biden. It's Donald Trump. And what does that mean for 4 years from now? I don't know. That's a scary thought.
It means President Donald J. Trump Jr. is what it means.
Exactly.
Let's go to Daniel in a car. You're on Boston Public Radio. Thank you much for calling. Hi.
Oh, hi. Jim and Marjorie, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to tell you that in 2015, when all this started, I knew that this guy just craves attention, and I said, I'm going to ignore him. And
that worked out well. Go ahead.
Years, I haven't. But what I really want to do is not pay attention for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I get it. I think a lot of people are in the same place. You're right, Dan. Is that because you think it doesn't make a difference, or just for your mental health?
Sorry about that.
Did you hear me?
No, I'm sorry.
Say it again, Marjorie.
I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. I was asking, are you doing that because you just, is for your mental health because you just can't take it, or because you don't think it matters?
I think it's a combination of two things. My mental health, absolutely, but very important. He needs to be ignored. If we all don't pay attention to him, that's the thing he would hate the worst.
Yeah, but
So
Daniel, not paying
him.
attention to him means not paying attention to the people who suffer the consequences of him, as you call him. And it's fine not to talk about Trump, but you can't not talk about what he's doing, can you?
I think the way to solve that problem is to, in your local community, make the world a better place. And he's going to make it work for a lot of people. So let's help each other here in the local area.
Daniel, excellent end to your first call. Call us again.
What's that slogan? Think globally, act locally. You used to see that in a lot of bumper stickers. A lot of people have said that. Do stuff in your local town. But here's one texter, Jim, who says, what we need to be talking about more is toe cleavage and dickies.
Yeah.
Toe cleavage is the correct amount of
well, the person goes on to
space.
say, no, really, I can't take it, by the way.
I'm not sure what they mean. If they talk
Meaning
about Trump,
I can't take any more Trump stuff. Is what they mean.
Toe cleavage is how many toes you should show in your shoes when you've open-toed shoes in the summertime that looks the most alluring kind of thing.
You want to credit the great Globe writer who created the whole
that,
concept?
Of course, would be Diane White. She was a brilliant writer at the Boston Globe for many, many years. And Dickies, of course, is a discussion of what Jim used to wear to all the bar mitzvahs he went to as a little Jim back there in Philadelphia.
Little Jimmy is what I was then.
Carla in Seattle, Washington. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Carla.
Hello, how are you this morning? I've been a long-time listener, just to kind of get a perspective throughout the country.
Thank you. What's up?
Well, so I'm staying on Twitter as part of the resistance as an Indigenous woman. I have a long-time Twitter account with long-time followers who are friends now, and we're staying on because we were there before Musk, and we'll be there afterwards as he implodes.
Well, I hope you're right about that. I really, really hope you're right about that. Carla, thank you for listening, and thank you for calling. We appreciate it.
Hi, NPR. My friends and I are beginning a new medical offering. It's called the 4-year induced coma. All your medical needs are met. Then you awaken after 4 years of peaceful bliss to a new world. And then somebody else says, I quit Twitter 8 months ago. It was the best thing I ever did for my mental health. Blue sky is where it's at, baby. And to quote Ben Franklin, it's a republic if you can keep it. And this person says we need more Boston Public Radio, not less. That's Paul from Braintree.
By the way, Blue Sky, for those who don't know, is that another social media platform that people are going to in some numbers when they're leaving Twitter. You know what we failed to mention?
What?
There's already proof in terms of the answer to our question. The numbers of the two cable stations, which were primarily not very supportive of Trump, MSNBC and CNN, plummeted immediately after the election. And Fox News's ratings exploded, meaning in the positive way. So people sort of voted with their clickers, you know? They said, I don't even want to, I mean, at least as relates to the immediate aftermath of the election, I don't want to hear any more of this, which is really, I mean, I totally get it because I sort of feel that way emotionally, but it's really dangerous kind of thing, you know?
Jody in Canton, thank you for calling.
Hi, Jody.
Hi, guys. Love you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So I deleted my CNN and my Huffington Post app.
Wow.
I stopped watching the cable news, and I'm just listening to like you guys. And I quit Twitter a long time ago. Jim, you should quit Twitter.
Thank you.
And I joined Blue Sky, and I got to tell you, Blue Sky's like the Twitter when it was starting. Like, it's awesome. And I'm getting a lot of news from there, and I just can't watch cable news anymore. I just feel like they contributed to him winning, and I can't.
You know, Jody, the biggest thing I don't like about cable news, and I did watch Anderson Cooper from 8 to 9. I taped it, recorded it, so I could listen to it and fly through the commercials. Not enough talk about issues. It was all about the horse race. So a lot of these things, I was reading Heather Cox Richardson. I was at this event with her at the Boston, at the JFK Library.
There was an overflow crowd
had
of
10 more
hundreds
people.
of people.
That's right.
That is correct.
Jim had 37 people up there.
That is not true. It was well attended.
Okay. But, she was talking about changes in small businesses across the country since the Biden administration came in. They've had an explosion in applications for small business licenses. Black business ownership has doubled in his administration. Hispanic business ownership is up by 40% since the pandemic. I didn't know that, and I do this for a living. We don't talk about the impact of what he did, and people don't know about it. I think that's a big problem.
Aaron, whoever that was, thank you for your call. By anonymous texter says, I think you need to do both, which is probably what we will do. We all need to stay informed, but a little levity is really important too. I only listen to NPR from 11 to 3. Hello, Jared, the texter says. Now, instead of mainstream news, I think either way, nothing will change till it gets worse, which is probably true and quite sad.
Lance from Lynn says...
Very kind. You're a kind soul. Thank you. Give us a call. Thank you.
Lance and Lynn says, I hate Trump coverage, but I can't look away. It's like driving by an accident on the highway. So this person wants us to keep up the coverage and pass the antacids. And somebody else says they like more coverage about local issues, like mass and cast and hospitals being shut down, et cetera.
Well, Monday, actually, the auditor is going to be here, Diana DiZoglio, and it took the House of Representatives, I'd say about a minute and a half, to decide how they could circumvent the will of 70+% of the voters of Massachusetts. Again, Auditor DiZoglio will join us on Monday.
Aaron in Hopkinton, thank you for calling.
Hi, Aaron.
Hey there. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, you guys do a great job covering national politics and national issues. But, we all remember from the last term that Trump sucks all the air out of the room, and there's no room for thinking about anything else. And Boston Public Radio, it's in the name. We really need folks like you covering local politics, local arts, local issues, so that we can really learn about that and focus on what's going on at home. There's going to be a tsunami of this outrage and awfulness coming to the national level. And we'll hear it on GBH for the rest of the day, too. But for 3 hours every day, we can learn about what's going on here. What can we do to make our world better?
Aaron, I have very good news for you. I got to let you go only because the connection's bad. From noon to 2 today is all local all the time. Boston, our region. So please stick around. And I think a lot of people feel the way you do. Thank you for your call. We appreciate it.
Okay, we have to focus on Trump and the U.S. wall to wall. When people are losing their health care and freedoms, we don't want to hear about fruitcakes. That's from Dave in Fairhaven.
Well, I am a fruitcake person come Christmas time. We'll do
and he
both.
blames the press for not doing their job as part of the reason we are here. There's a lot of media
I have to say, I think that was a fair
complaining.
criticism in 2016 or 20. I don't think it's a fair criticism. I think the legacy media, for the most part, by the way, did cover the issues really well. And probably when you look at the top 10 read stories on all their websites, the top 10 stories didn't include those, even though they did the right thing. I think places, the Globe locally, the Washington Post, New York Times, GBH locally, BUR, I think we did responsible coverage of this race.
But there's a lot of talk about the new powerhouses in journalism. It's not journalism, but it's getting people to listen. Is people like Rogan and the so-called Manosphere, all those
What's the
podcasts.
statistic you gave me this morning about who voted for who and what they listened to or didn't listen to? That was fascinating.
It was something like people who paid attention to the news regularly voted plus 6% for Kamala Harris. People who didn't pay attention to the news really at all voted, I think it was up double digits, like 12 or 19% for Trump. And that was one of the things you noticed with John King when he had people around the country.
Mm-hmm.
They would talk about the economy, and you'd ask, what was it that Trump did for the economy? And they would say they had more money in their pockets, which was true prior to the pandemic. But that's because, again, he inherited a good economy, and he's going to inherit it again. So the idea that Trump is mostly, or at least in his first term, was about tax cuts for really wealthy people didn't seem to matter to people.
Now, Marjorie would ignore this text, but I never would, because I think it's directed
is this
at me.
Roger?
Roger from New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I would gladly listen to a daily discussion of daylight saving time instead of a daily headline involving our next president. Thank you, Roger. I take that as praise. And
you know what? One of the things I think about people not listening to MSNBC or stuff about the news, I think particularly for young women, this is a particularly depressing election, because you think we've now got a guy that's running around allegedly having sex with underage women, I should say.
Not having sex. These were
sex trafficking.
Exactly.
Sex
That's
trafficking.
Not having sex.
Well, he was doing both. I think we can.
Well, I think but the charges were about underage people, which is not a consensual
taking
operation.
Women, he was having sex. Young women, he was having sex. Underage women across the border to continue that process. But anyway, so he's going to be the Attorney General possibly, and a guy that is was in court to be adjudicated as a sex offender. Donald Trump is going to be the president. I mean, those kind of things, and all those attacks on women with abortion, even though we did get abortion rights back in a lot of states, I think that's their feeling that they are somehow really disliked by vast swaths of the American public.
Or not respected. I don't know about dislike, but right, their rights obviously not respected
that
by
whole
enough
thing,
people.
I mean, how many times have you heard young women talk about your body, my choice? Mm-hmm. That's become a slogan, and they're talking about the girls' or women's bodies are theirs, and it's their choice what to do with them. Deborah in the car, thank you for calling.
Hi, Deborah.
Hello. And I just want to talk about hope in light of all of this.
Great.
So everything that Marjorie was just saying is really a downer, and it saps our energy, even though it's all true and we need to know it. We also, I think, can focus on the resistance to all of those things. And if you report on how we're fighting against global warming, how you were fighting against misogyny and transphobia and insanity, then we can both be informed by what's happening and be hopeful and empowered and energized to fight against it.
I hope I have your spirit. I would like to say the exact same words you did, because I think you are spot on. It's really hard. And Deborah, I'm glad that you and people like you are there. Thanks for the call, and thanks for what you're doing. 877-301-8970. By the way, the election, I don't know if you're aware, was how many days ago? He was declared the winner 9 days ago. Does it not seem like 9 years ago we've been living with the re-election of Donald Trump? It's unbelievable.
I know.
9 days.
Let's go to Oliver from Newton. Thank you, Oliver, for calling.
Hey, Oliver.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Hey.
Second time caller. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to build on what a previous caller said. So I know... hear me out. I know this is radical. If we just sit back and let them do this stuff, these terrible policies, then that might give the country an opportunity to see how bad they are. Like right now, there's just so much fighting and murkying of the water. You just can't. That's what the focus is on. Like if you think about when two people are fighting, what the focus is on the fight and not the issues. The issues have kind of gone out of the window because of what's happening. And I know this is radical, and it's hard to sit back and watch, particularly on issues like abortion, where people are going to suffer. I know that's hard, but people need to see it for themselves.
But Oliver, if I may, people have already begun to see what the repeal of Roe v. Wade in the Dobbs decision did. Marjorie, almost every day before the election, and she was not alone, talked about the consequences of that decision for individual women, and a majority of women in this country voted for Donald Trump. So he's sort of, let there be blood in the streets is not only, as you say, radical, but also, at least this round, I don't think it worked. But by the way, you are not alone in that. There are a lot of people who say it's good that the Republicans won the House, let him get everything he wants, and then hopefully in the midterm elections, things will change. It's just, as you say, hard to do. Oliver, thanks for the call.
Here's an interesting idea. This person listens to us a lot and says, I strongly feel going forward, a certain 30-minute time frame each day should be called Stump with Trump, then forget about him and deal with other issues. And a lot of people are saying they'd like to deal with more Boston-centric issues, more local news, because we are, of course, Boston Public Radio.
I think we are. That is correct.
Mary in Mission Hill, thank you.
We got to go.
Oh, we have to go.
Well, but since you said Mary, we can't not. Mary, you have 30 seconds
Mary.
max. Go. Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
With great respect, I'm really tired of hearing you talk about how awful Trump is.
Okay.
He is awful. We need to accept the fact that he's awful and figure out how we can mobilize ourselves to reclaim our power.
I like that, Mary. Thank you for
Very
your call.
good.
Sorry we're out of time, but appreciate your call.
Okay, after a quick break, it is time for Live Music Friday with singer-songwriter Juliet Lloyd. Wait till you hear her performance. She's managed to turn years of emotional strain into a cathartic batch of new songs on the heels of a brand new album release. Juliet Lloyd joins us next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Elections are over, and women did not break the glass ceiling. How will this play out?
While I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign.
Join politics editor Azita Garamani for a GBH News Forum, Election 2024 Impact, Women in Leadership Respond. Wednesday evening at 6 at our GBH Studios in Brighton. RSVP at gbh.org/events.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, ranked #1 in member satisfaction among commercial health plans in Massachusetts by J.D. Power for the second consecutive year. Details at mgbhp.org/everyday. And the Art Complex Museum in Duxbury, Massachusetts, now showing American paintings from their permanent collection and paintings by Massachusetts artist Nancy Hayes. Admission to the museum is free. Learn more at artcomplex.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, live at the Boston Public Library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Thanks so much. At noon, we'll be joined by a panel. Former Mayor Kim Janey, the NAACP's Michael Curry, and Ted Landsmark, who runs the Dukakis Center at Northeastern. Our text prompt of the day at 877-301-8970. Again, we'll read your text after the 1 o'clock news for one day, just today. With Trump's win and all that comes with it, news of Elon Musk leading the new Department of Government Efficiency, a lot of people are leaving Twitter. Are you? If you are, why? And if you're not, why not? At 877-301-8970. A lot has changed since our next guest first set foot in Boston, a Berkeley College student. That was 2004. If the Red Sox could make the impossible possible, so could she. She wouldn't stay forever, but DC-based Juliet Lloyd says she's always kept Boston in her heart. Her new album just came out. It's called Carnival, and it's available on streaming services now. Here she is, Juliet Lloyd, performing a song from that called Pretty. Welcome.
He had his father's eyes, he had his father's temper, and he wanted me all to himself. When you're barely past 18, not used to the attention, it's so easy to fall under his spell. And you learn how quickly fairy tales become so cautionary. Don't fall for the first one. Don't fall for the first one. Don't fall
Juliet Lloyd. Come join us, Juliet. Juliet Lloyd, you can check out her work, her new CD, and everything at julietloyd.com. She's about to join us here up at the, whatever this thing is, the counter, some such thing. Hi, Juliet.
Thank you.
That was great.
Thank you, Juliet. Well, I was reading about you and your new album, Carnival, and one of the things they talked about is that it's a very honest album. Is that part of what Pretty was about?
For sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, almost every single song on the album, I would say every single one has at least a kernel of truth and honesty, and then sometimes I embellish a little bit for comedic or dramatic effect, but absolutely, yeah.
By the way, our show is a kernel of truth.
That's right.
It's a similar kind of thing.
That's right.
So what is Pretty about? I mean, it's pretty obvious what's Pretty about.
Yeah, so Pretty is about a relationship that I had when I was in college many, many years ago. This actually predated my time at Berkeley. And it was something that I've kind of not tried to think about in a really, really long time, and I didn't talk about it, and I kind of avoided it. And then when I started writing songs again and thinking about this album and ghosts of relationship past, I thought, maybe it's time to address this one.
Okay, so you addressed it, and then you got a communication from someone. Is that correct?
I did.
What happened?
Yeah, so I released Pretty as a single in April of this past year. It was the first single from the new album. And a few weeks later, I got a text message from a number that I didn't recognize in the middle of the night. And it basically just said, the song that you just released, the guy in the song, I don't think you're being fair to him.
And what did you do as a result of that?
I broke out into a cold sweat, first of all. and then I got mad and I wrote another song.
Which is called?
It's called Call Your Wife.
Exactly.
Call Your Wife.
And,
I like that.
By the way, that song is fabulous. That is Call Your Wife. The whole CD is great, but Call Your Wife is great.
Yeah.
You were an economics person before the Berkeley deal. Well, how did that happen?
Yeah. I've kind of always gone back and forth in my career between being, very risk averse and very traditional and wanting to study econ, and then rejecting that and wanting to be in music and be in the arts profession. And so, I loved studying economics. I loved, supply and demand and all that. And then when it came time, when I graduated, I was like, I don't want to go into finance. I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't know what to do with this. And so maybe I'll try music.
So you had a hiatus of many years, right? And you did work the kind of more corporate jobs. So I'm always amazed when people can say, I'm going to throw that away.
Me too.
And then I'm going to go do what I love to do. Was this a decision over months, weeks? Did you go to therapy? Did you talk to a relative? How did it happen?
Yeah, it was the pandemic. It was during the pandemic, and so I wasn't in therapy yet. I am now. But yeah, it was having that time. I had been working a consulting job in the DC area for about 10 years and not really performing, and I hadn't written a song in 10 years. And the pandemic, I think, gave me the gift, if you want to call it that, of the space to kind of just step back. I wasn't commuting anymore. I had the time to start to be creative again.
Yeah.
And to think, like, maybe there's something still there, and maybe I still have something to say.
And you're a piano player, too.
Yeah, primarily a piano player.
Primarily. So when did you start with the guitar?
I started dabbling a few years ago. I would say I really seriously started playing it about a year ago. It's much more portable. So.
It's much more portable. But I would think it's harder to play, to sing with the piano than it is to the guitar. Maybe I'm wrong.
For me, it's guitar is way harder. I think for me, piano is very linear. There's one way to play every single note. Guitar, the fact that you can play a single note 100 different ways is just like, I can't.
How hard is it to recreate a career after a decade-long hiatus, and how do you do it?
Yeah, it's hard, because so much has changed since my first go around. I was here in Boston for the release of my first two albums. I was here 2004 to about 2008, 2009-ish. And that was before social media, really. Mm-hmm. And so getting back into the career post-pandemic, so much has changed. There's so many tools that I didn't really have as much of back then. But also with that comes, it's so easy now and so inexpensive relatively to put out music. So that just means there's so much more out there. And it feels really, really difficult to cut through. Whereas, 15, 20 years ago, there were more ways that you could reliably get to the people that you wanted to hear your music. And it's so much more difficult now.
It won't surprise you to hear, Marjorie says this all the time, I'm beating her to the punch. Almost every performer we have, it doesn't matter where they're coming from at this moment, has a Berkeley connection.
Yeah.
How important was Berkeley in the formative process of Juliet Lloyd
Yeah,
as a performer?
Formative is a perfect word.
Why?
Yeah, it was foundational. Yeah. So
what does it do for people, young people like you when you're there?
Yeah, it was two things, I think. One, it was really having the space to study the craft of songwriting, right? When I decided I was going to be a singer-songwriter, I hadn't actually written a song yet. I was just, I was a musician and I had played my entire life, but I admired the artists that wrote their own music. And so I thought, well, maybe I can do that too. But when I first started writing songs, I didn't really know what I was doing. And so Berkeley gave me the tools, they gave me the language. And the other thing was just the amazing network. You mentioned everybody has a Berkeley connection. The people, my bandmates, my producers all came from Berkeley at the beginning.
So after you release Pretty as a single, you get this thing from a number you don't recognize in the middle of the night or whatever it was. And after your initial whatever emotion you described, you write Call Your Wife. What did you hear from that person after you wrote Call Your Wife?
Nothing.
That was it?
Yet.
So you got the last word as of the moment?
Yeah.
So before you sing again, tell people a little bit more about the new album, Carnival.
Yeah, so I say it was kind of 15 months in the making because that's how long it took to write and record it, but I would say it was probably, 5 to 10 years in the making as far as the life experience and what went into the very personal songs. I went through a divorce just before the pandemic, and so a lot of the songs in the album, I think the through line is living through a certain experience, processing it, and then letting it go and moving on. And, remembering it in a certain way, and that might be not the same way that somebody else remembers it. And so that's kind of the common thread that I think goes across the 9 songs.
And when you do it and you tell the world about the personal crap you went through, do you feel better at the end? I mean, you produce great art, I think, as a consumer of your work, but do you feel better, or how do you feel?
I actually do, because I can't tell you how much it means to me that when I play a song like Call Your Wife or Pretty, to have somebody come up and say that I feel exactly the same way, and you've given me words, you've given me the voice to these feelings that I have too. And that for me is the best feeling as a writer and a performer.
Well, the CD is great. I listened to the whole thing last night, and Marjorie did too. What are you performing for us now?
I'm going to do a song called Motorcycle and Tattoo Sleeve, which is the last song on the album. It's kind of ends on a hopeful note.
Oh, it's not about the same a-hole that you've been writing about?
No,
the other
it's
thing?
not.
It's not.
No.
Okay. Motorcycle and Tattoo Sleeve. If you gently put down your headset,
Yes.
you can return to whatever. Again, if you want to check out everything you might want to know about Juliet Lloyd, you can go to her website, which is julietloyd.com. julietloyd.com, and she is about to perform as soon as she gets guitar in hand and takes the receipt. Motorcycle and Tattoo Sleeve. Here again is Juliet Lloyd.
Found out my ex now drives a motorcycle, and his left arm is covered in a giant you become. I may have got it all wrong, and I haven't learned a thing, but I know my ex has got a motorcycle and a tattoo sleeve. Maybe love's just an extended midlife crisis. It makes you question every single thing you thought you'd ever knew. Or maybe all our choices lead us where we're supposed to be, and we're all just doing the best that we can do. Oh, isn't this love? Oh, isn't this love? The things that you take on and all the things that you give up, all the ways you compromise till you could hardly recognize what you become. I may have got it all wrong, and I haven't learned a thing, but maybe he was always meant for that motorcycle and that tattoo sleeve.
We have been speaking and listening to singer-songwriter Juliet Lloyd. Her new album is
Smart Conversation about community issues is up ahead with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Newport Mansions, presenting sparkling lights at the Breakers, one of Newport's most anticipated and dazzling holiday traditions, November 22nd to December 29th. Tickets at newportmansions.org. On Great Performances, celebrate the composer-lyricist duo that changed musical theater forever. Don't miss star-studded special performances and catch Rodgers and Hammerstein's 80th anniversary, tonight at 9 on GBH2.
I'm Equity and Justice reporter Trajan Warren, and you and I are listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 2 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. We continue a conversation we started in September about the path to racial equity in Boston with former Boston Mayor Kim Janey, Ted Landsmark, who you might recognize from the Pulitzer Prize-winning photos Soiling of Old Glory, and the NAACP's Michael Curry. And yes, we'll also get their thoughts on changes on the national stage.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then Jenny Johnson and Billy Costa, broadcasting best buddies for life, have a new cookbook. It doubles as a love letter to Boston. It's called A Taste of Boston. The Definitive
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President-elect Trump says he is backing North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum for Interior Secretary. Trump says a formal announcement would come today and signal that there would be an additional big announcement as well. Here's NPR's Stephen Fowler.
Speaking at the America First Policy Institute Gala at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida, Trump teased the announcement would come Friday. He said Burgum will be part of a second term's goal of cutting regulation, waste, fraud, and inefficiency. If confirmed, Burgum would play a key role in pushing Trump's agenda to increase oil, gas, and coal production on public lands. The Interior Department also oversees the Bureau of Indian Affairs. A key refrain from Trump on the campaign trail was a vow to, quote, drill, baby, drill. Stephen Fowler, NPR News, Atlanta.
The incoming Trump administration's agenda looms over COP29, the annual global climate talks being held this year in Azerbaijan. The United Nations climate negotiations process is under the microscope at COP29, where groups representing government, private, and scientific interests are in talks designed to limit global warming from coal, oil, and natural gas. Today, environmental advocates released reports criticizing the influence the fossil fuel industries has had at the talks. A prominent activist, former Vice President Al Gore, posed this question in his address to COP29 attendees.
Do we listen to the polluters who don't want to do anything meaningful that might reduce fossil fuels, or do we listen to the scientists who have been telling us what we need to do?
President-elect Trump has been very vocal about his support of America's oil and gas industry. California voters have turned rightward on crime, approving a ballot measure last week that toughens punishments for certain drug and theft crimes. They also sent 2 progressive district attorneys packing. Here's NPR's Kelly McEvers.
Alan Oscuyan says he doesn't consider himself a tough-on-crime person. But one day, 3 men broke into his jewelry store in Irvine, California, smashed the glass cases, and stole everything.
The sound, it was deafening.
Oscuyan was one of nearly 70% of California voters who supported Prop 36, which will make certain crimes that were misdemeanors felonies. Activist and community organizer Stephen Q. Jean-Marie frames the outcome of the vote in stark terms.
They would rather have black and brown folks as a sacrifice in order to keep other people safe.
Researchers say Prop 36 will increase the number of incarcerated people in the state. Kelly McEvers, NPR News, Los Angeles.
U.S. stocks are trading lower this hour. The Dow is down 320 points, or nearly 0.75%. You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Dozens of Massachusetts cities and towns have extended their outdoor burning restrictions, and requests to limit water consumption has more than doubled across the state in the past week, all because of the intense drought the region is experiencing. According to the updated map that by the U.S. Drought Monitor released on Thursday, about 68% of Massachusetts is now under severe drought conditions, up from 32% last week. A red flag warning remains in effect for all of Massachusetts because of the sunny, very dry, and windy conditions. According to the National Weather Service, there's no significant rain in our forecast for at least the next 6 days. President Biden has fulled former Boston Mayor Marty Walsh's nomination to the governing board of the United States Postal Service. The White House made the announcement yesterday, but didn't give a reason for the withdrawal. The move comes as the transition begins from Biden's administration to President-elect Donald Trump. Walsh is currently the executive director of the National Hockey League Players Association. He was also in President Biden's cabinet as Secretary of Labor, a position that he left last year. In sports, the Bruins and Celtics off tonight. Both are in action tomorrow at the TD Garden. The Bruins have the day game. The Celtics have the night. Patriots host the LA Rams at Gillette on Sunday, and we are looking at a very dry day today. Sunny, upper 50s, clear, upper 30s overnight. Don't think about lighting that grill this weekend. 51 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive. Progressive Commercial Auto Insurance protects the vehicles that work to keep small businesses moving forward, including protection while running errands and other tasks. At progressivecommercial.com.
Here's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Our text prompt of the day, 877-301-8970. With Donald Trump's win and everything that comes with it, news of Elon Musk leading this new Department of Government Efficiency, and hundreds of thousands have fled Twitter after all this news. We want to know, have you quit the social media platform? If you have, why and where are you going now? We're switching it up a little bit. Usually we do this right before the 1 o'clock news. Today we're doing it right after the 1 o'clock news. So you have another hour or so to text us at 877-301-8970 about whether you've abandoned Twitter or X, as we're supposed to call it now. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. Our next guest joined us about a month and a half ago on the 50th anniversary of what became known as Boston's busing crisis. There was too much we did not get to discuss while they were here. They were kind enough to agree to return to continue our discussion about building the best schools for the city and community's kids, and now to discuss how the work they've dedicated their lives to will be affected, if it will be, by the changes on the national level of 9 days ago. With us in person is Kim Janey, our city's first black, first female mayor. She's currently president and CEO of Economic Mobility Pathways. Mayor Janey, it's great to see you again.
Thank you.
We're also joined in person by the Distinguished Professor of Public Policy and Urban Affairs at Northeastern. He also directs the university's Kitty and Michael Dukakis Center for Urban and Regional Policy. And of course, you recognize him from a moment of incredible violence immortalized in the Pulitzer Prize-winning image, The Soiling of Old Glory. Ted Landsmark, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here. And in a couple of minutes, we'll be joined on Zoom by Michael Curry, former head of the Boston NAACP, current board member of the National NAACP, and CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers. Again, that'll be in a couple of minutes. Mayor and Ted, it's great to see you.
It's great to be here.
Great to be here.
Well, let's start with you, Mayor Kim Janey. Tell us if, as Jim just mentioned, the election, re-election really of Trump, does that impact what you're doing here locally? Are there going to be effects?
You know, I certainly think so. Our elections are important. There is truth in the fact that the closer the election is to you, the more you're impacted. But we can't ignore the rhetoric coming out of this candidate elect and what they plan on doing and how that is impacting folks locally on the ground. I serve at Empath, a number of women and children who are immigrants who are feeling fearful of what is happening next. What does this mean for them in terms of mass deportations, in terms of drying up of resources that could help them climb the economic ladder and be to be in a place where they can contribute and make sure that themselves and their families are good. And so they're worried for sure of what happens
How
next.
do you address their fear if you and your coworker?
Well,
what do you
we
say?
first and foremost are committing ourselves to this work and letting them know that they are safe when they are with us, that we are here to continue to help them on their journey. And that all of us deserve this opportunity to live out the American dream in this nation. This nation has a lot of resources, and certainly I'm trying to lean in on the hope side of things, but it is really worrisome. Our families are failing it, our staff. We have to worry and wonder about resources coming down the pike, what kind of legislation will be there to either help or hurt our families.
You know, Ted Landsmark, you obviously work in the education infrastructure. We'll get to the public schools in a couple of minutes when Michael Curry joins us, but we've already heard that this next president, wants to eliminate the Department of Education. He has made it clear that higher education institutions that continue to commit to issues like DEI have potential to suffer a loss of whatever federal funding they receive, and I believe most prominent universities do receive it. What's the likely impact in your estimation on the world in which you work?
Well, there's no question but that students are very apprehensive about how their careers are going to shape up at this point. Many of the fields that students have thought about going into that relate to matters of urban planning, social justice, racial equality, gender equality, are being cut back very significantly. And we're also seeing major cuts in infrastructure spending that will affect matters of resilience and sustainability and how we go about developing along our coastline. So students who entered our programs as recently as 2 or 3 years ago thinking that they had fairly clear career paths into many of these fields that are being cut back now wonder exactly what's going to happen to them.
You know, let's move from students to the people in charge. There was a term that I'd never heard of until I read it in Brian McGrory's column after Jeff Bezos killed the endorsement of Kamala Harris in his paper, The Washington Post, anticipatory obedience, that was actually crafted in 2017 by a professor at Yale, the notion being that powerful people are bending at the knee of the man who might be the next president of the United States out of fear. Now he has become the next president of the United States. Are leaders in higher education, who it seems to me in many cases were cowed by the efforts of the Elise Stefanik's and others in Congress during those hearings, what's your expectation of how they react to a Trump presidency?
I think there's certainly been concern at the level of our public universities, where legislatures, which have tilted very much to the right, are now cutting back on programs that relate to inclusiveness and DEI. And I think that a number of universities around the country are taking pressure from alumni and from conservative lawmakers who don't like to see the kind of progressive discussion that goes on within universities taking place.
When you hear things like Harvard across the river here talking about staying neutral on all but core issues, I don't even know what that means, except we won't take a position on anything that's going to upset a rich alum. What's your reaction to that kind of thing? And they're not alone, by the way.
I don't think there is neutrality. I think that the classroom should serve as common ground and a neutral place where people can have safe dialogue. We often emphasize in our classes that the classroom is probably the safest place for students to come together to discuss potentially divisive issues. And it's not always easy to get students to speak out on some of the things they believe in.
Are you going to change anything you say?
No.
I didn't think so.
Kim Janey, if you believe what we've read and heard since the election, the big issues for people that supported President-elect Trump were, bread and butter issues, the price of eggs, the cost of groceries, cost of a living, and immigration. And even among Latino voters, I think a lot of people wrongly assumed that if you just got here 20 years ago or 10 years ago, you would be much more sympathetic to the people coming across the border now, fleeing these horrible conditions. But that seemed not to work, and that when people complain that the Democrats forgot about the working class, that the thesis is that it is the working class towns that absorb more of the migrants coming here. Remember the recreation center in Roxbury got shut down for one, Melanie cast one for the migrant families and stuff. So is it that the so-called elites didn't realize the issues that people in communities most affected?
Look, I'll say this. The economy is always a top issue.
Yeah.
Issues around your pocketbook always matter. We've learned that in our elections always. And that is an issue that impacts all of us. And I think somehow we've allowed ourselves to say that a woman's issue is about reproductive health care and not the economy. And that is false, completely false. All of that being said, I do find it hard to reconcile the fact that because some individuals, the price of gas has gone up for someone, that they could then still embrace such an administration, one who has been very clear about his stance against women and reproductive health care, very clear about his stance against immigrants, against so many of these groups who, for whatever reason, he was able to grow his share of votes with some of these votes, and that we would put a convicted felon in the White House, someone who has promised that he would undo everything he could about our Constitution and our democracy, is frightening. And we would do that because I'm paying too much for gas. It's hard to reconcile that.
But we did, right? A majority of
people did. But
is
that the reason?
I don't know.
Well, what is the reason?
I don't know the reason.
Do you know the reason?
But I would speculate it goes deeper than the price of gas and the price of eggs.
How about Ted Landsmark, Mr. Public Policy at Northeastern? Do you know the reason?
I think that the radical right has been organizing at the ground level for at least 20 years. Mm-hmm. They've been organizing around school board elections and tax board elections and around the selection of judges and the like. And they have, to a certain extent, taken over many of the elements of the democratic infrastructure that exists, that holds the country together. And they've done that across the country, and they've done it very successfully. And I think that if progressives want to change that, we need to recognize that that change is not going to take place in 6 months, but it's going to take place because people organize and get out to vote.
But, I have to say, we've heard for years, I subscribe to your notion, by the way, even though I'm going to criticize it in a second. We have heard for years people sitting in that chair saying they're better at strategy. The Federalist Society, for example, and their laser-like focus on getting people on the Supreme Court of the United States. Why doesn't the other side, the progressive side of the ledger, have a similar sort of thing? Margaret Marshall was sitting there, the former Chief Justice of the SJC, 2 days ago, and we asked her if she believed, for example, an expansion of the Supreme Court. I don't know about you, I never talked to her. I was shocked when she said, without blinking, of course I do. And she went on to say, and I have no idea why President Biden, who I think she admires, didn't embrace that immediately. So I guess the question to you, Ted Landsmark, is why is the right so much better at organizing and strategic decision-making than, I don't even want to call it the left, whatever it is, the progressive side of the debate in America? Why are they so much better at this?
I think it's because they've narrowed the issues that they're prepared to go after. They have a limited discourse to just the economy or just women's rights or just racial justice, where the left to a large extent has taken on a much broader panoply of issues to address. And as a result, the right has been able to elect people to high office who have a shared agenda.
Yeah. And I don't think we can. I don't think we can ignore. I agree with all of that, and I don't think we can ignore the politics of fear. So what the right has been very successful in doing, in addition to all of those things, is tapping into people's fears. And sadly, the fears are outweighing the hopes, and people are motivated seemingly by fear of what might happen versus a hope for a better future.
But Mayor Janey, who talked more about fear of the opposition than Vice President Harris?
She did, but that's not the same kind of fear of saying to a group of individuals, you are being replaced by all of these other groups, and therefore we've got to take our country back. That is the kind of fear that is out there that we did not necessarily hear from those candidates, but really on the ground as they are doing their canvassing and door knocking. That is the kind of fear that was out there.
We're talking, that's the voice of former Mayor Kim Janey. She's now president and CEO of Economic Mobility Pathways. The other person with us is Ted Landsmark from Northeastern and the Dukakis Center, and we expect to be joined imminently by Michael Curry from the NAACP and the League of Community Health Centers.
The replacement thing was a big thing, particularly among white Americans who may be concerned about being replaced by people of color. But the thing I don't get, like I mentioned before about the Latinos, I thought a lot of the racism was a lot about racism on the southern border. But then when you have and Mexicans and Guatemalans and people from Venezuela and people who are also Latinos so upset about the southern border, it's not just, it's partly racism, but it's not just racism.
No, it's a caste system. And so we have perfected that in this nation. We have perfected that even if we view ourselves as being kind of lower in the economic rungs, at least we're not like those folks.
Yeah.
And that's what we are seeing, sadly, with lots of different groups.
I want to talk, can we talk, in a second, we promised to talk about schools, and I want to do that, public schools. Before we do, as I was just looking at you, and you're probably so sick of this, and I apologize. It's really hard to talk to you and not have that image conjured up. I mean, you know that to be true, and I'm sorry, because you've done such incredible work in your life that I admire greatly. But I could see that exact same thing happening tomorrow. The exact same image, the same flagpole, the same black man or woman on a plaza of some city hall in some city in this country. I think
you're right.
Well, that's one vote. How about you?
Yeah, I have students who come to me who don't know about the photograph and see it and immediately express apprehension that could happen to them in almost any American city.
And what do you say to them when they say that to you?
I tell them that things like that do in fact happen, although generally not with a Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer next to them.
Exactly right. Stanley Foreman, yes, exactly.
Yeah, he was a great photographer. So last time we talked to you, we were talking about the 50th anniversary from busing. And Mayor Janey, you experienced busing. Michael Curry, who's standing us up here, he's on his way at some point.
He's at some conference.
He was also a kid that was bused. And you think, okay, 50 years later, you're reading stories in the paper about still trying to get the buses to the schools on time. You read that really, really heartbreaking story about the kids all dressed up in their football uniforms. I think it was East Boston High. They were going to go play. I forget, was it the O'Brien they were going to go play? I think it was the O'Brien. I don't remember. Anyway, they're all ready to go, and the bus doesn't show up. So And we spend a lot of money, right, in Boston on busing. So it kind of made you think, wow, I mean, what are we doing?
Right. And as we talked last time, Marjorie, we have seen the transportation line item go up over the years. And at the same time, we have seen the number of students decrease who are using our buses. And very little of what is left in that budget is for busing kids by choice. Most of that is mandated by state law. And so I know it is a line item that people want to kind of target and put a bullseye on, but unless you are willing to go deeper and try to change some of these laws,
this is like special ed kids that may be going to Needham or something.
And we've made a commitment to busing students with disabilities, and I think that's a value that we should maintain, but we have to recognize if we're going to maintain that value, there's a price associated with that. Very little of this money is being, but remember, they took the middle school kids off these buses. The high school kids weren't on the buses to begin with, and then with the home-based assignment plan, more and more kids are going to school closer to their homes.
But you said last time, I remember, you had the final word in the last discussion, which was cut short before we got to solutions, which is one of the primary reasons we wanted all three of you back, is when one of your colleagues, either Ted or Michael Curry, said neighborhood schools, you were quick to jump in and say high-quality neighborhood schools.
Absolutely.
That neighborhood schools alone are not enough.
Absolutely. And if we're building high-quality neighborhood schools, we have a better chance of getting folks to choose schools closer to home. We already know that parents want the best for their kids and that they're willing to put their kids on buses long distances like through Metco to get that quality, that they're willing to send their kids away to boarding school to get that quality. So rather than just figuring out how kids are transported to school, the missed opportunity has always been, how are we improving that quality in the school? And that proximity is not a proxy for parent engagement. That's where we left off. The thinking that you were saying, Marjorie, is, well, if we just have the school, all of the parents will bring cupcakes. Well, that is not our reality today. It was never my reality as a woman of color that we would have the luxury of bringing cupcakes to school when we have to work. And there's a lot more that has to happen in that school building with that staff to ensure that the school is welcoming and inviting families in and treating them as partners in the education of their children. That can make a difference.
So Ted Landsmark, you've been nodding through most of what Kim Janey has said in the last couple of minutes here. Flesh it out a little bit. What should be happening in these schools 50 years after busing?
Well, first of all, school buildings need to be seen as community resources. And not only as places where education of young people takes place. They need to be seen as points of access for healthcare, for employment, for the arts, for community building, for a range of other services, because they're centrally located, they're safe spaces, they often have parking available, and they're perceived by communities to be real assets. And I think that if we reconceptualize the way we think of the school building, we fundamentally change the culture within the community.
You know, that idea, I don't mean this in a critical, that's so obvious and makes so much sense to me that the natural question is, so why aren't we doing something that makes so much sense? That isn't that hard a question. I don't think it is. Why are we not doing we'll get the mayor involved in a second. Why are we not doing that?
Yeah, I'd like to hear her.
Well, she goes first. Okay,
you better ask the
Janey,
current mayor. You better ask her.
Well, we're asking the former mayor.
I would say that in Boston, there is no shortage of dedicated nonprofits that want to support community groups, leaders, civic leaders, etc. Those folks don't always agree on what is the best use. To keep a school building open after hours, it is an asset that should be utilized, but there is a cost to that. We have to recognize to keep that building open, you have to hire janitorial staff, you have to have security and the like. And this is just to have a PTA meeting, a parent meeting. And so if you're really opening up to community after hours, that's a whole nother thing. And what I hear you saying is not just after hours, Ted, but throughout the day. And how are we bringing in our health services? How are we making sure that our children who may not have access and opportunity outside of the school for some of these resources, that we're providing them there during the school
I think
day?
I can sort of answer your question about resources. I don't remember when you were mayor if this issue had to be confronted within that time frame, but I know that Mayor Wu is confronting it. The way you save money is you consolidate schools, and it seems to me as a mayor of a major American city, there's nothing more difficult than to close a school and convince the community. So what do you do about that?
I would agree. I think this city has to face a really hard reality, and I think what will be important is to lay out a process by which you are engaging lots of folks early on at the beginning of a process, not to come out with half-baked plans and have people react and go crazy, but how can we really together say, these are the hard realities that we're facing. We have buildings that are old and that are falling apart. We have a shrinking student population, and we have limited resources. And so we have to make some tough decisions. My understanding is that that football was kicked down, or that can was kicked down the road a little further. So I'm not sure when we're going to start that process, but I think we are going to have to face that tough reality.
Yeah, consolidation is a 2 to 3 year process that involves making enough time for parents to be able to plan for what will happen to their kids 2 or 3 years away. And it's very difficult for public officials to sell the concept that something is not going to happen immediately, or at least within the term of their elected service. So it requires a comprehensive way of looking and engaging parents over a multi-year process.
Has anybody done success? Any mayor in recent American history that you're familiar with, Ted Landsmark, done exactly what you're suggesting in a major American city?
I can't think of one offhand.
I mean,
it's politically very difficult.
It is very difficult.
Yeah. What Ted said, though, is important. The benefits of such moves usually are down the road. And so the parents who are experiencing the disruption, the kids that are experiencing that disruption, will never see that benefit. And so you have to convince people that it's important to plant a tree that will provide shade for people who are yet to come. It's really tough.
We're talking to former Mayor Kim Janey and Ted Landsmark from Northeastern.
Kim Janey, you mentioned when we first started the fear and the nervousness with the moms and the children and the people that you were dealing with who've recently arrived here. Where are they hanging out? Where are they going? How are they planning their next few weeks ahead?
So our families at Empath are working hard to climb the economic ladder and to put in place all of the steps needed to do that. So that might be completing a certificate program or a degree. That might be making sure that they are cleaning up their credit scores. Perhaps they are applying for new jobs and really trying to, bring up their incomes. Our families at Empath desperately want to work, and so it's important to shut down the lies that we see coming out of different camps who want to describe folks as being lazy or being a drain. These are folks who are helping to stimulate our economy. And not all of the folks that we serve are immigrants. Many of these families we are serving are American born families, and all of us deserve this opportunity. So they are working hard despite the rhetoric that is coming down, and we are there to try to support them as they live out their...
And you can't help think in Boston, which has become so ridiculously expensive to live in, that what is the number you have to be making $70,000 to afford a 1-bedroom or something in Boston? So it must be incredibly frustrating.
And I think it's more than that.
It could be more than that. It could be a lot more than that. But it's got to be incredibly frustrating to try to live in a decent place.
It is. It is tough in our region. And so part of what we have to do come together is to make sure we're making our city more affordable as we continue to grow. We need to make sure that this city continues to be a vibrant, world-class city that does not displace its residents, that people can find opportunity right here within our city, and that they can raise their families. You're right to point out all of these challenges, but I think, using this election as that tool and inspiration we need to kind of tackle some of these tougher issues for our families is really important. That's the work that we're doing at Economic Mobility Pathways. Doesn't matter who's in office, we are going to help our families live out the American dream.
So I'm going to let you two make the following program decision, Ted Landsmark and Mayor Janey. The tardy Michael Curry has appeared with 1 minute and 26 seconds left.
We can give him the final word.
Do we allow him?
We're going to give it to you, Mike.
Yeah.
Michael Curry, head of the League of Community Health Centers on the National Board of the NAACP. Michael, welcome. We know you had a conflict and we appreciate it.
Yeah.
The question that we want to address to you is, of all the things that's happening on the federal level, it seems to me the easiest one to connect the dots with is from RFK Jr.'s potential, quote, leadership of health and human services and public health, and the work that somebody like you and the hundreds, thousands of people who work with you at the League of Community Health Centers. How at risk is what you do because of that decision by the incoming president?
Yeah, I think I am right now in North Carolina speaking to a group of medical students from across the country, and I'm the keynote speaker for this group. And I can tell you the sentiment of the professors, the faculty, and the students in this room is fear, because they know that science matters and that this nominee, expected nominee, doesn't believe in science. And that not believing in science, as we learned from cholera and polio and COVID, right? Science matters and saves lives, and millions, hundreds of millions of lives have been saved. And now we have a person who doesn't believe in science. He's going from his gut, not from his research, not from the data. So I am super terrified because that's what we got when we voted. We got a denial of science, and now this person is likely to run many of the most critical agencies in health and human services, and the FDA and others. So I say that having joined late, and I apologize.
Oh, it's fine. We understand.
We got to be super vigilant now, as I heard Kim and others, and Kim would normally say this. Now, if you were asleep before and you were waking up, now you need to be an insomniac, because now you got to pay attention every day, every night, to make sure that your family's not impacted by bad policy, healthcare policies.
You know, Michael, do we have a second?
Yeah, we do.
Just quickly, I mean, one of the things that RFK is most famous for, RFK Jr., I should say, is being a vaccine skeptic, or if not actually stopping people walking around with babies and telling them not to get their kids vaccinated. So what would that mean? Could that mean a shortage of actual vaccines, or what are we talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, the implication is this. Of course, I'm here with researchers, right? So my presentation is clinical trials at HBCU. It's Kim, it's Livingstone College. And I'm here with Dr. Davis and his future STEM participants. And I think the folks here, and I'll be walking out of this and going back to chop it up with them, as we say, about research and science, is that we need the pharmaceutical life sciences to invest in this research. We need for there to be some benefit for them to research and invest in this, so that if we identify a solution, a life-saving innovation, that there's a market for it and people will take it so that we save lives. There is going to be, it's not a matter of if there's going to be another pandemic, there will. And some things won't be worldwide, they'll be more isolated. And the reality is that we need that research now, we need the investments in that research now. We don't want to be caught flat-footed with emergency use authorizations like we did before. We want to have the investment, and we want to have diverse clinical trials and research. Again, to your question, Marjorie, the implications are more people die, and as we know about health inequity, the people who are more likely to die are the people closer to the pain. They're poor, they're unhoused, they're unbanked, and they're essential workers, and they got, Kim, what they call black jobs, which Trump sarcastically used, but unfortunately we relegated black and brown people to bus drivers and sanitation workers and essential workers and nurses, which he tripped into that when he said it intentionally. But the reality is we need them healthy, and we need to make sure they have medications and they can go on to medical school and law school and be the brilliant folks that I'm meeting in the room today.
Can I just say, Michael, thank you. I'm glad you got here, and we hope all three of you will continue to return as a group. We really benefit from this. But I want to say, rather than leaving it with RFK Jr., when Chief Justice Marshall was here the other day, she said the single most inspirational moment in her life was in Cape Town in 1966, when she invited Robert Kennedy to come speak at a pretty horrible time in South Africa's history, and we played a little bit. Listen to the speech. Google the speech of RFK then for those who feel hope deprived, and maybe that helps you do the kinds of things all three of these people continue to do. We really appreciate your time today, all three of you.
Thank you so
much. Really
Thank you very much. We have been speaking with the former mayor of Boston, Kim Janey. And by the way, Mayor Janey is speaking at a GBH Forum event next Wednesday, the 20th, with Governor Jane Swift and Sonia Chang Diaz, who was up in the legislature for quite a long time. It's called Elections Impact Women in Leadership Respond to the 2024 Election. Go to gbh.org/forum network for more information. Thank you very much to Kim Janey. Thank you very much to Distinguished Professor of Public Policy and Urban Affairs at Northeastern, as well as the Director of the Kitty and Michael Dukakis Center for Urban and Urban and Regional Policy. That would be Ted Landsmark, and of course Michael Curry, the NAACP's Michael Curry, who's also the CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers. Okay, after a quick break, local radio and TV legends and on-air best friends for life. That, of course, would be Jenny Johnson and Billy Costa. They're here to tell us about their great new cookbook. Why don't we put out a cookbook, Jim?
We're putting one out.
Okay. Liverwurst and Baked Potatoes. That would be the name of our cookbook. Listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Trusted, local news.
Massport is aggressively expanding its seaport-based cruise ship business.
44 new vessels will cascade into the market between now and 2028.
GBH News.
Spewing their foul air.
It's just not sustainable to keep going bigger and bigger and bigger endlessly.
Here for what matters to you. GBH 89.7. Online at gbhnews.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the law firm of Davis Malm. Their employment lawyers have your work cut out for them. Learn more at davismalm.com. That's DAVISMALM.com. Davis Malm. Lean, agile, strategic. And Celebrity Series of Boston, presenting Martha Graham Dance Company, returning to Boston for the first time in 20 years. November 22nd and 23rd at the Cutler Majestic Theater. Tickets and more information at
Team in Boston. Boston radio and TV stars Billy Costa and Jenny Johnson. If I had to list all the shows and things they host together and apart, we'd run out of time. But here's just a couple. Billy is the co-host of Billy and Lisa in the Morning on KISS 108. He used to do the high school quiz show here. Jenny's co-host with Billy of Meet Boston on Nesson. Dining Playbook. They hosted TV Diner. Enough already. Okay.
Yeah.
The reason they're here is they're out with a really terrific
city. And we are so lucky because we have really strong relationships with the chefs in the city and the restaurateurs, and we wanted to kind of immortalize this moment in time for our city. So we put 60 chefs together, 60 recipes, and 60 stories, personal stories that we have with these amazing chefs.
Yeah, there's a lot of anecdotal type stories, the times we met these chefs, how we got to know them, how we became friends, watching them open their restaurants and expanding their restaurants and opening more restaurants. And there are a lot of great stories in the book, which I think is cool. And Mark Wahlberg did the foreword, and that's a cool story. You're
an old buddy of his. How'd that happen? What's the deal with that?
Yeah. Actually, it was Jenny's idea. She called me one morning and said, hey, I know you're buddies with the Wahlbergs and with Mark. Any chance you can get Mark to do the foreword for the book? And I'm like, I don't know, let me ask. And I texted him early one morning, and you probably know he gets up very early, so I knew he'd be awake. So I texted him early one morning. I said, hey, buddy, any chance you'd be willing to do the foreword for mine and Jenny's cookbook? And in 60 seconds, he texted me back and said, absolutely, whatever you need.
Well, his brother is in the book, Paul Wahlberg, great chef. We've known his family for a long time, been at all the restaurant openings, and so it was really nice to be able to have him there. But you guys know so many of the chefs that are in this book. I know you guys have had them on the show, and you guys also know that the camaraderie amongst the chefs in this city is very strong. It's a really beautiful thing. So to be able to share that with everyone who's connected to Boston felt nice.
One of the I can be honest about a criticism of the book. There are not enough pictures of the two of you in the book. It's like every damn page. It's a picture of a chef, Billy and Jenny. A picture of a chef, Billy. You know what I love about this, by the way? I have found this in the radio business. I mean, you guys do TV too, and I know you do radio as well, and BZ on Sunday nights. I forgot that on the list of that.
Thank you for that, Jim.
Is a lot of the restaurants, restaurateurs or the chefs, you know their name and love them. You're not sure what they look like, and And seeing them I love that part of it, because a lot of these people we don't know, actually.
True.
We know their restaurants. And to see them in like a relaxed kind of thing, I thought was really great. And it's not biography stuff. It's like personal anecdotes, which is really great. One other issue we have with the book, especially Marjorie.
Okay.
I want to quote, this is from the
Did you
introduction.
come up with a list of issues?
I did, actually. I do have a list of
All right,
issues.
leave it to you, Jim.
And the good news is we have 15 minutes. Here's
Okay.
the issue. 20 years later, I think Jenny said you've been together 20 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
20 years later,
we have an issue.
it is humbling and baffling to think that would be you two, are the longest running male-female broadcasting duo in the history of Boston. That would actually not be true,
No.
Jenny. And
No.
so is that a
Do you have
typo?
proof of that?
Is that a typo?
It should have said television.
Oh, but it didn't,
It
did it?
didn't. And you're right, that is very not
you very
true.
much.
Okay, so we need a retraction.
I think we need a retraction.
Okay.
As long as you brought that up, though.
Yes.
Okay, it's 25 years for Jim and me, and 20 years for you guys. Most people that are in duos don't last that long, because they, after the second or third year, they start to really hate each other. And so
we hate each other.
Like, all day long. I mean, what are you talking about? Yes.
Yeah, but that's true. So it's obviously worked without, I mean, we know that I put up with a lot, and that's how it's worked with me and Jim.
Well, it's equal, so it's
It's
good.
equal.
Yeah, how
But I mean-
the hell have you managed?
Exactly.
How did you, can we go back to, you going to ask him about the beginning?
I was going to ask them about what's your secret to success? I mean, do you collaborate? Do you say, Billy, I don't think that's a great idea? Or
Do I say that, Billy?
Every
Never.
single day.
No, I mean, I think our relationship is incredibly special, and it started as I was his producer. It was my first job I had at a school, and it was actually Charlie Kravitz, who we both know, who said, "You guys have really good chemistry together. Let's try this with the two of you together." And I mean, it's been awesome, and he's one of the most important people in my life, bar none, right?
Yeah, and it's been, I've watched her raise her family and the children, and
I used to
Rob,
babysit
her
his
husband.
children,
She used to
you
drive
know.
my kids to hockey games.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
At like 4 o'clock in the morning or something?
Oh, yeah.
This is moving because Charlie Kravitz hates Marjorie. So it's actually like it's a beautiful
Wait a minute.
kind of story.
Well, let's dive into that. What's going on with Charlie?
It's a very long story.
There you go.
Let's get back to the cookbook. First of all, we never have a cookbook author on without me trying one of the recipes to make sure it works.
Well.
I did Davio's meatball thing. I could not afford
The
Kobe
Kobe.
beef.
Okay.
It was like $100
Okay,
a pound.
got it.
But I have to say, I've had meatballs from Davio's, and I made them 2 nights ago. They're almost as good. I mean, it works. I mean, it works for even lay chefs like me. There's no way you know how to cook anything. Is that a safe assumption?
Zero.
I'm pointing to Billy.
Okay.
No, I know you're pointing to Billy, and he does not know how to
Don't
cook.
have him
Wait a
What's
minute.
the answer?
When I was a single guy, I happened to be a very good cook.
When
Of
was
what?
that?
You weren't around. But no, I used to be able to cook, and I could still
Turning
cook.
red, by the way, I should say, if you're not watching.
But it so happens my wife, Michelle, is a wonderful
Yes.
cook.
Okay.
And
That's
my
good.
children's
She
mom was
Sure,
a
nice
wonderful
try.
cook.
Okay,
So
but you
nice, yeah.
became a cook. I read somewhere when you did some
spiritual
journey or something.
Well, I went to school for a few years during COVID, and I became an Ayurvedic practitioner. And so, in that, the way that I cook and the things that I cook really changed. And I love being in the kitchen. I was a professional diner for the first probably 13 years of this career and duo that we've been together. And then I sort of transitioned to the kitchen. I was able to take all the skills that I've learned from these unbelievable chefs and put them into use.
Now tell us what it means to be, I can't even pronounce it.
So
whatever it is.
It's a
practitioner.
health system. So it's
Okay.
an Indian health system. It's a way of cooking for your own body. You have a different body type than I do. You have a different body type than I do, and we should be eating different foods. And so it's a way it's preventative medicine, a way to make sure to nourish your body before you get sick.
So when you contacted,
she's very good at it too. By the way, I wouldn't eat any of it.
He doesn't say anything nice to me, so that's very kind.
Did any chefs say, 60 chefs in the book, and by the way, if you haven't seen it yet, it's with a couple of exceptions. It really is the top. No, it is. I mean, they're the top chefs.
Yeah.
And did anybody say no?
No one said no, and it was so hard, guys. You know that we certainly know more than 60. We've certainly worked with more than 60. What our goal with this was to make sure to show the diversity of the city and to make sure we were able to show the different neighborhoods within the city.
Because you got the North End, you got the Seaport, you got all over the place. Tell us a story or two from the book.
Okay, you want to give a couple? Give them.
Well, the result of the book, you and I cooked cottage cheese pancakes together. I never thought in my lifetime I would make cottage cheese pancakes.
Who would think that combination is good? It really, really is.
It was actually good.
I mean, there's so many different
recipes.
recipes.
Whose recipe was that? The cottage cheese pancake?
That was Anthony Caterano from Preza.
Okay.
And I think one of the great things is that we'll tell you some personal stories in here. I'll just pick up open one. Andy Husbands has been a friend of ours for a very long time. I don't know if you guys have had him on the show. Smoke Shop, he's been a restaurateur forever. And he remembers us doing cooking competitions between Billy and myself, where he was the judge, and he tells a really great story about that in there. So, and he's an unbelievable educator, right? He's one of those guys that you really learn from so much. Jose Duarte, another amazing chef, Peruvian
we traveled
chef,
with Jose to Italy.
All over a couple times to Italy.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things, when you mentioned Andy Husbands, last conversation I had with him, and he was right, he was critical of us for not, I think we were critical of some restaurateurs. And he said, you don't spend enough time talking about the philanthropic work. He wasn't talking about himself. He was talking about the community of chefs and restaurateurs. And you touch on this a lot in this book. It's actually, I don't know if it's that way in any other city. It is huge here.
It is one of the things that we wanted to make sure that people know is the restaurant industry is an extremely hard industry to survive in right now. The margins are incredibly, incredibly small, and the hours that these people put in and the blood, sweat, and tears they give to every single dish they put in front of them it's an arduous task. And yet they additionally spend their nights and their extra days off going into all of the galas and all of the food events to be able to celebrate the nonprofits in our area. We also included ones like Love and Spoonfuls. If you guys don't know her, you should. Ashley Stanley.
Community Servings.
Community Servings is another amazing one. Of course, we did Greater Boston Food Bank. And so we wanted to make sure that people know that not only are the chefs friends amongst themselves, but they give so much to this community. And so we hope, in reading this cookbook, that yes, you go home and cook, but that also you go out to support some of these restaurants and really sort of applaud them for the great work
And we feature them in side dishes, is what we call in the book, and we tell their stories.
We talked a lot about the ballot question about tip wages, which people rejected. And it seemed it was not popular, not just among restaurants, but among servers. That it went down in flames. So was that right to vote it down?
We are very happy that it was voted down. It was
I believe so. It's only my opinion, but you mentioned Andy Husbands. He was very aggressive on
and why? Because the margins are so...
No, so it had a lot to do with the way it was written, and it had a lot to do with not really understanding the business structure that is already put in place for restaurateurs in Massachusetts. It's not something that you can kind of swipe across the board and say, this is going to work for every state or every industry, but for the way that things operate here in Massachusetts from hospitality, we're happy that it got
the fear was a lot of the smaller restaurants wouldn't be able to afford it and would end up going under.
How is the restaurant industry?
It's hard.
Doing
it's
right
hard,
now
and they will tell you. I mean, I think we always see an influx of excitement around this time of year, but I think it goes back to education, and that's one of the other things that we really hope to do in our shows and in this book is to really educate people about this industry, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about it and about how it operates, and that it's that these restaurateurs make a ton of money, which they really don't. And people get into this business to serve us. And I think that is something that's so important for us to remember when we feel like we're waiting too long, or when we feel like, we can't get a reservation or something like that, or when the prices are high. Those are things we want to make sure that people know. So much goes into this
And
process.
a lot of restaurateurs would tell you that they've never really come back from COVID. Because people's schedules changed a lot, and their lifestyles changed a lot.
You know what's interesting is that younger people in their 20s eating earlier. They're at the early bird specials, which I find kind of odd.
Zoe, our coworker, eats at 4:30 and goes to bed at 6 o'clock.
Smart.
She's 31 the other day.
Good for her.
Again, they've changed
the
their
secret
routines.
for longevity. It's very important.
Okay, so Jenny, this one's for you because I don't think he'll answer honestly. So let's do you. You in this book and in other places. I mean, you do list every show and everything you've both ever done, which is long. Interestingly, when I met him a long time ago, he was hosting a show for another food operation. You may have heard of them, the Phantom Gourmet. Have you ever heard of those people?
Oh my God, you're going there.
How come?
This is why I love you. You just have no limits.
Doesn't
care. We never mention that in this endless bio of yours?
Okay, I'll answer.
That's a very good question for you, Jenny.
Yeah. I can't believe you.
I'm going to give a high five for that one.
How long have we known you guys that we have?
Okay, go ahead. Let's hear it.
I mean, it was a good chapter. There's a lot of different chapters chapters
Exactly.
in our
8 years.
lives, both
8 years.
professionally
Exactly. It was
and
an excellent
personally,
chapter.
and it was a good chapter. It didn't.
Why isn't he saying anything?
There was a business section
Okay,
of the
exactly.
Boston Globe about 16 or 17 years ago that was titled "Food Fight of Boston," and
But I was never fighting with anyone.
Billy Costa never fights with anyone. He doesn't know how. That's part of his.
We
his
mentioned
thing.
Charlie Kravitz, who brought us together.
My former boss, and
Yes.
Jenny's and yours, and for a short period of time,
All I
Marjorie's.
can tell you, you want me to say things, so
I would
will.
like you to say
I can't believe it's a cookbook
Yeah.
show. We're talking about the cookbook.
It's Jim
It's related. Go ahead.
So Charlie called me one day and he said, "Hey, would you like to have lunch? We'd like to have lunch with you."
Sure.
And Jenny's freaking out now.
She's saying, "Move it along."
Move it along. Go ahead.
And so he at lunch and I had no idea. He said, "We would like to have you host your own show. We don't."
It was a great opportunity,
We
and
don't
thank God
intend
you
to-
did. Here we are,
Okay,
20 years
okay.
later. Okay,
And
there
I'll
we
leave
go.
it at that.
There we go.
Okay, we can leave it at that. So, since we're not talking enough about the cookbook, tell us something we haven't talked about. By the way, you know what's amazing? When I said this to her yesterday, Marjorie, I can't believe that nobody did what you did.
Yeah, repeat the
Bring
concept
everybody together
again.
in one place
So,
is fabulous.
What we wanted to do is to be able to capture what is happening in the culinary scene right now in this moment in time. And what's really amazing is you have chefs that have been here for 30 years. Lydia Shire is the first chef that you see in there. She's, kind of one of the godmothers of the culinary industry here. And then you have chefs like Charlie Foster, who have been on the scene for just a few years. And so what we wanted to make sure that people also know is there's this beautiful family tree within these chefs. So many of the ones we know and love worked and started together. And think about it. You have the opportunity to recreate Joanne Chang's Boston cream pie.
It's
What is
unbelievable.
better than that? You have
you
that
tried
recipe
that
there.
yet, Jim?
No,
That's a
I'm
tough one.
no bigger Joanne Chang fan, and I've
amazing.
not made that. But I'll do it tonight with you, Billy.
Yeah.
If you're
Boston
free.
cream pie. We'll do it together.
You know what's the interesting thing about the tree?
We didn't say, though,
What?
that it's you have stories about the chef or the restaurant or their stories or their anecdotes, pictures of them, and then a recipe that they chose to put in the book.
For their favorite dish.
Yeah, so the lemon oil, what do you call the
Olive oil cake.
Olive oil cake.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff like that. So you can cook from this book as well as...
They have an excellent recipe you can use on boiled potatoes. You can just boil potatoes with some butter.
I don't think that's in here.
You know what the incredible thing about the tree? I was just thinking, I didn't know, and this may not matter to anybody except me, I live a few blocks away from Oleana. I didn't know till I read your book that
Anna and
Oleana
Cassie?
is Anna Sortun's
Aw, you
first
didn't
name.
know
I love
that.
that. Anna Sortun,
Yeah.
obviously to Sofra and Maura Kilpatrick, obviously the
Sarma.
brilliant Sarma,
Yep. And before that is
Cassie
Julia
Puma, we should say,
Childs.
yeah.
Like, that's the thing that I want to say is someone said to me, why is there such a strong female chef presence in Boston?
That's a good...
And in my mind, it has to be connected
Yeah,
to Julia
I think
because
so.
she was here, she was invested in this community, and she was invested in the future of chefs. And so from that spawned a lot of amazing people like Jody Adams and, of course, Lydia Shire and just a number of chefs that worked with her.
We were almost out of time, but you've talked a lot about the philanthropy and the camaraderie of the chefs in Boston. Is that unusual? If you go to New York City or Chicago, is it the same or not?
I don't think it's
we don't.
unusual, but I think it's better than any other
good way
major
of
city.
answering it.
Why?
Because
it's approachable city.
they're all
it's a,
friends.
it's a
They
much more
all
approachable
do things
city.
together.
Mhm.
It's the camaraderie keeps coming up.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
unlike any other city
And
that
the
I've witnessed.
And the generosity during the pandemic that we
Oh, yeah.
saw
Oh my
was
gosh,
really
incredible.
Yeah.
Totally
Making
incredible.
sure food got to people who really needed it and couldn't
Yes,
get it otherwise.
and making
yeah.
free food for people and delivering it to where they could get it. It was just it
People
really knocked
buying
your
this
socks
thing?
off.
We actually have had a lot of success. We're #1 in the cookbook section of New England right now on
There
Amazon.
you go.
Yes, we are. So
That
it's
is
been really
fabulous.
exciting. I mean,
Now,
listen,
Jim, you
it's
seem
the holiday.
surprised.
Of
I'm not
course he is.
surprised, but that's great.
The,
That's real
the
great.
forever cynic over here.
No.
Okay.
By the way, I have great news for you.
Yes.
Nicole, one of our coworkers, is putting a video together on TikTok of your retraction of your incorrect statement about you being the longest running
you
male
are totally
female
right. It
broadcast.
is wrong word.
Yeah.
It
We
should say
officially-
television.
Television,
It should
yeah.
say television. That
Television.
I'm so sorry
It's
for
wrong.
both of you. It is terribly wrong.
Marjorie was really offended. I
But
didn't care, but
We
she
had a
was really
TV show,
offended.
but no one ever saw it.
No, but
Well,
on NACN, by the way.
That's true.
What do you mean it's true?
Oh my God,
No,
you guys,
no, you
you
people
guys are just
watch.
throwing daggers. I love this.
can't.
This is awesome.
Okay, the
But-
name. What are you going to say?
I was just going to say that
Yeah.
if it's a great holiday gift for
It's a
folks
great
who are
holiday
looking.
It is a
If
great
you
holiday
love
gift.
Boston,
It is a
this
great
is a great
holiday
one to
gift,
give.
and the recipes are very approachable, and the stories and anecdotes are great.
Did you make one, by the way, this week? I forgot.
No,
Did
but
you make
I'm
her?
working on to the olive oil cake.
Yum,
Page
it's
58.
so good.
It looks really good.
Gotta do it.
I'm going to do it.
I want to
Okay.
see that.
We have been speaking to the longest running
Congratulations,
Thank you
stars
guys
It's really
so
great.
much.
of
Thank you.
local television and radio and everything else, that would be Billy Costa and Jenny Johnson. The book is A Taste of Boston, the definitive cookbook for the city we love. It is available now everywhere, and it's a really fun book. Not just for the recipe, for the stories of all these, these restauranteurs.
Pictures are great. Oh, who took all the pictures, by the way? We should credit
Brian Samuels. He's magical. It's hard to shoot food. He did a great job.
Yeah.
And together they host Meet Boston and Dining Playbook on NECN. Okay, is there anything I missed? Nesson. Whoops. Sorry.
And he's got the morning show.
NECN. That's where we all began.
Just like you guys.
At NECN. Isn't that right?
Why don't you guys come on Food for Thought, our other show, and you can make the boiled potatoes and the lemon oil cake.
I like it.
Okay, coming up after
Beyond the Page event, we'll be featuring best-selling historical fiction author Kate Quinn. Bring your questions and join us on Tuesday, December 10th. Find out more and reserve your ticket today at gbh.org/events.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Comcast Business, committed to providing connectivity for your business with network and cybersecurity solutions. Comcast Business, powering possibilities. Restrictions apply. To learn more, you can call or visit comcastbusiness.com. And Blythewald, presenting the big, beautiful bamboo birds. Bamboo sculptures ranging in size from 15 to 30 feet tall. Visitors can see the giant owl, queenfisher, peahen, and more all around the gardens. Tickets at blythewald.org.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Hour 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. It's our text prompt of the day at 877-301-8970. After the election, hundreds of thousands have left Twitter, also known as X. Are you one of them?
To the restaurant yourself, so she has to pony up. Call or text your thoughts. Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President-elect Trump's nominee to oversee the Department of Health and Human Services is under heavy scrutiny. If confirmed by the U.S. Senate, where Republicans will have the majority come January, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been given Trump's approval to dramatically shake up HHS, which oversees major programs and agencies such as Medicare, Medicaid, the FDA, and the CDC. NPR's Selena Simmons-Duffin says critics worry Kennedy will flout scientific facts to promote his own views.
He has some views that are really far out of the mainstream. Vaccine skepticism. Current CDC Director Mandy Cohen wrote to NPR yesterday, quote, "I don't want to go backwards and see children or adults suffer or lose their lives to remind us that vaccines work, and so I'm concerned," unquote. The idea of someone who's actively sowed misinformation about vaccines being in charge of the government's scientific research and public health agencies really horrifies a lot of people in those fields.
But Kennedy has promised to address chronic disease, promote greater access to nutritious foods, and take on food companies and their ingredients, messages that have resonated with many parents and are backed by science. A United Nations program that uses satellites to detect large methane leaks is finding them, but the UN says countries are not responding to fix the leaks. NPR's Jeff Brady reports that at a UN climate conference in Azerbaijan, leaders say stopping these climate-warming methane plumes should be a top priority.
Natural gas is mostly methane, which is a powerful greenhouse gas, even more potent than carbon dioxide. For the first few decades, it lingers in the atmosphere. The UN Environment Program says it delivered 1,200 methane leak notifications in the last 2 years, but only 1% got a response. The UN program doesn't have regulatory authority. That rests with individual countries. A new report says the United States is among those that is responding to leaks, which often come from oil and gas drilling or other fossil fuel sites. Smaller and developing countries say they need help setting up programs to respond to methane leak reports. Jeff Brady, NPR News.
Spending at stores and restaurants inched up last month. The latest report from the Commerce Department showing retail sales grew 0.4% from September. Here's NPR's Alina Sayuch.
The report on higher spending in October came together with new data about September. The Commerce Department now says that retail sales actually rose twice as much in September as was reported before. It is a tentative but positive sign about the economy and consumers' budgets. Now, the latest data from October shows spending grew almost 3% compared to a year earlier, which just outpaces inflation, meaning people spent more not only because prices increased. Last month, shoppers bought more home improvement and gardening supplies, automobiles and auto parts. And continuing the trend of the year, they spent more at restaurants and bars despite higher menu costs. Alina Seluch, NPR News, Washington.
You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry
No
Santoro.
need to rush. Interest rate
11 state lawmakers are heading to Cuba for the next week. The legislators are planning to meet with public officials, researchers, and healthcare workers in the country. Cambridge State Rep. Marjorie Decker leading the delegation, which also includes House Speaker Ron Mariano and members of his inner circle. Decker says she wants to learn more about Cuba's biomedical research and share details about Massachusetts' investments in healthcare and life sciences. The trip comes as a trio of healthcare bills are still hung up in private talks between the House and Senate, and a day after lawmakers sent Governor Maura Healey a bill that would pour $500 million into life sciences over the next 10 years. Meanwhile, Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey has not joined a new coalition consisting of other Democratic governors organized by J.B. Pritzker of Illinois and Jared Polis of Colorado to help fight the dangers of authoritarianism. The group calls itself Governors Safeguarding Democracy, and a spokesperson for Healey says she is not a member of that group but is still in frequent contact with other governors. Don't look now, but the Allston staple, Roxy's Grilled Cheese, is leaving the neighborhood after a great 10-year run. A statement on the company's Facebook page says the last day in the Allston location will be November 24th, and it thanks its patrons for all the cheesy memories. And while the Allston shop will no longer be, the Roxy's location in Central Square, Cambridge, will stay open, and the Roxy's Grilled Cheese food truck will also remain in operation. 51 degrees, this is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher's dedicated team of specialists provide resources on investing, retirement income, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Mr. Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I want to welcome Ryan Landry, the great playwright and everything else. He's an artist and he's a beautiful painter.
Not everything else. He's good at a few things.
He's a hair replacement expert as well. He's going to join us in a little while. And so at the end of the show, we're going to be... Oh, he is.
He is. We'll talk about that, yes.
We're going to do our Who is the A-hole, which is the big favorite of the listeners out there. Hello again, Jim.
Hey, so this is our text segment. We postponed it a little bit. All day long, we've been asking if you're among the slew of Americans, and by the way, it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands so far, who are bidding adieu to Twitter, or X, whatever you call it, now that Elon Musk is headed to the White House. And does the state of the world have you reevaluating your relationship with social media in general and Twitter in particular? Marjorie, what did the texter say? Before you answer that question, I want to say Marjorie,
yes,
as a woman of principle, would leave Twitter if she could remember what her password was.
That's
Is
right.
that safe to say?
I had a lot. It took me like 3 days to get to deactivate Facebook, and I'm in the same boat. I'm gone from Facebook, but it took me a while to figure that out.
Well, can I speak to that for a second before you read the text?
Yes.
All the experts I've read in the last 24 hours, in a moment of seriousness, say, do not close your account on Twitter, because if you do, some troll is going to get at Marjorie Egan, at Jim Browdy,
right,
and start tweeting as
so that's
you.
my excuse.
So just stop using it
and
if you're a person of
I don't really use it, although I have kept up with the guy that's Rabbit Boy, the guy that's been
covering... It's not Rabbit Boy, he's Turtle Boy.
Turtle Boy, whoops.
It's not Rabbit.
He's been
from
doing
the Karen Reed.
The Karen Reed.
Rabbit Boy.
Yeah, he's the guy that's been covering the Karen Reed
Aidan
thing.
Kearney is
Aidan Kearney, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't know. I thought Rabbit Boy, Turtle Boy.
It's not Rabbit Boy. It's not Rabbit Boy.
Rabbit Boy.
Oh, she's amusing herself. Okay, so what are the texters saying about leaving Twitter there?
Well, Jeff in Providence is saying, I'm staying with Twitter as long as Stephen King is there. He's fighting the good fight, and so am I. However, Jamie, our producer, points out that Stephen King, alas, quit X last night, or Twitter.
Did he really?
Saying, I'm leaving Twitter.
Wow.
Tried to stay. The atmosphere has just become too toxic. Follow me on Threads if you like. A lot of people have gone to that Blue Sky and say that they love that site instead. It's a wonderful place, says Carrie from Needham. And a lot of people say they have been off Twitter since Elon Musk bought it, which is a long time ago. Now, Jim, you are still on Twitter. Would you care to comment on that?
Well, I mean, the problem, unless you want a serious answer to the question? There's 600 million users and 300 million are active. It is true that there's 300 or 275 million on Threads, which is doing relatively well, but only 30 million regularly post. So it's not as useful. And I have to say, vis-a-vis the Threads, and I am going to join Blue Sky, convenience is, and this, I'm not proud of this, is more, for lack of a better expression, convenient than principle. But my intention actually this weekend is to stop using, why are you smirking at me? Stop using Twitter. And this is hopeless. Whenever, by the way, if you work with Marjorie, when she has that look on her face, which is of utter satisfaction, because obviously someone has texted something ridiculing me. Is that a safe assumption?
True. That is true.
Okay, well, take it away, Marjorie.
Betsy in Nashua says,
okay.
Jim, I've never done Twitter. The only place you could find info about it at his Endicott College event.
Which was a huge event, thank you.
That's right. However, she said she did drive all the way from New Hampshire to the JFK Library in Dorchester to watch Marjorie and Heather Cox Richardson and Eileen McNamara from the overflow room.
Fine.
We had an overflow room, Jim.
Okay, and she said it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay,
and by the way, another texter says if Twitter...
You're like a sadist, by the way. I mean, it really is like demented.
If Twitter is too toxic for Stephen King...
That's a good one.
You know you're really doing something wrong.
Okay, so rather than ridiculing...
People are asking Jim about your Tesla la la.
What about it?
Well, you have a Tesla la la.
I sold it yesterday.
Okay.
Now, let me just say a serious thing before we end this. Mayor Wu was the first person I knew who primarily shifted to, I think it's called Mastodon. It was far too complex to use. The unfortunate part of Twitter, it's very easy. Blue Sky is what a lot of people are doing now. Check that out. I'm going to do it this weekend. As I say, there are 275 million users on Threads, which is half as many as Twitter, but virtually none of them, 1/10 of them, is all that are active, and that's a serious problem. So if you join Threads or join Blue Sky, which I intend to do, and you're serious about it, then you got to be active.
Josh from Waltham says,
oh my God.
Rabbit Boy is the hero we all need in these trying times. And I can't disagree with you, Josh.
Okay, fine.
I'm sorry
I think that's just about enough,
wrong,
by the way.
I just want to say that many people think that Blue Sky is the way to go.
They do.
But some people, like Mitch in Bedford, he's with the original texter who said, I'm on Twitter fighting the good fight. If people leave, then who will remain to challenge all the lies? Vive la resistance.
Wow, that's beautiful. Okay, thank people.
Thank you very much for
Thank you for
text.
texting. That's it.
Yep, and thank you, Betsy in Nashua, for driving all the way from Nashua to the JFK Library in New Hampshire, which you could have just gone right next door to see Jim in Nashua at the...
Well, unfortunately, there were no seats left, so she couldn't get in. It was at Endicott College. And by the way, it was about the anxiety generation. Jonathan Haidt's book, and his researcher was there, some great panelists. It was a fabulous event, and it's going to be available on YouTube shortly, and I will share that with people, Marjorie.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Sounds good.
Nice talking.
All right. Good.
Okay.
Are we taking a break?
Yeah, we're taking a break, and then you're going to introduce Ryan Landry. You couldn't figure out what he did before, but I'll tell you what he does in a minute.
Well, I know he's a
he's a brilliant playwright.
Expert, and he's a brilliant playwright. Matter of fact, he's been writing plays every year for Christmas, and we're going to play a small part in his latest holiday show, which is called Is Rosemary's Baby Jesus? He joins us to talk about that and so much more. That's not his play?
No, but go ahead.
It's not? Is Rosemary?
No, I'll correct that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Stay with us. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, the Grammy nominations are out. We look at the snubs, surprises, and snoozers. Then we remember the late Boston jazz giant Roy Haynes. The pioneering drummer and band leader was a fixture at Scullers and Wally's, who also earned international acclaim. Plus, more than 2,000 fakes have been seized and a major art forgery bust. That and more on The Culture Show's Week in Review, today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Rockland Trust Bank, helping foster healthy relationships with money by providing education and resources to the community, one neighborhood at a time. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC. And Supermicro and NVIDIA. accelerating AI with a wide range of AI servers and the NVIDIA AI Enterprise software platform. Supermicro is committed to driving AI infrastructure breakthroughs with rack-scale innovations.
I'm Jim Browdy. Head on. I'm still Jim Browdy. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Who was that guy? Live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Here with us at the interview desk, painter, playwright, 2015 winner of the Elliott Norton Award for Sustained Excellence in Theater, Ryan Landry. And while I'll probably regret this, he's one of our favorite people, but it is what it is. You also know him as the founder of the great Gold Dust Orphans theatrical company. The latest iteration of his annual holiday show is a spin on a movie you're probably more likely to watch around Halloween than Christmas time. Here it is.
What have you done to it? What have you done to its eyes?
He has his father's eyes.
What are you talking about? Guy's eyes are normal. What have you done to him, you maniac?
Satan is his father, not Guy.
Actually, it sounds like
he came up from hell and begat a son of mortal woman.
Whatever. Sounds like a Ryan Landry play. It's not. That was Mia Farrow in the classic 1968 film Rosemary's Baby. Ryan's rendition with Gold Dust Orphans is Rosemary's Baby, Jesus. It runs December 4th through December 22nd. Our team goes every year.
That's right.
It's the highlight of the Christmas season for us. It's the Iron Wolf Theater at the South Boston Lithuanian Hall. To book tickets, you go to the golddustorphans.org. That was endless. Hello, Ryan. Nice to see you.
Hello, James. Hello, everyone.
Well,
it's nice to see you.
I apologize for turning the name of your play into a question instead of a definitive statement. Rosemary's Baby, Jesus.
Apology accepted.
Thank you.
So nice.
Thank you. But do tell us further about Rosemary's Baby, Jesus.
Well, it runs sort of the same line as Rosemary's Baby, but of course it's all based around the Coven is doing a Christmas show. And they want Rosemary to play the baby, the Virgin Mary. And I can't tell you any more about it than that, except for there's tons of puppetry. There's over 350 costume changes. There are dance teams. It's just spectacular. It's almost cinematic.
Now, can you tell us this? There is a rumor in town that, as we discussed with Jenny Johnson and Billy Costa, the longest appearing on radio male-female team in, I think ever, but at least currently, in Boston radio history, has some part in this production. Is that correct, yes or no?
I thought that, yes, it's true.
Well, what's the hesitancy?
We practiced the other day.
I know. No, I was going to say something
unkind,
but
well,
I'm
not
going to say anything unkind.
We're not allowed to say what we are, right?
Holiday season.
Exactly. Well, we can't say what we're playing or doing.
Yes,
right?
you can.
We can.
Yes.
Well, you tell us. You're the playwright.
You're playing your two animals in the manger.
That's
scene.
right.
I think you should say what animals we are.
I am the gentle.
Marjorie is a gentle little lamb,
yes.
and Jim is the jackass.
Exactly. What a surprise. Why is that so funny to you? Why do you find that so funny?
Oh, and Jim plays his role so well. But I have to commend you because I was never in the school plays or anything. Jim was in The Cow Who Jumped Over the Moon or something like that.
It was Cowboy on the Moon.
Sorry,
is what I was in.
I never
Thank
did
you.
anything. And it's not a natural thing for me. But you, as a director, you bring it out in your actors. So I feel as though.
Oh, and now you're ready for your own
I'm
dramatic
ready.
series.
That's right. I'm ready for my debut. But tell people about the Gold Dust Orphans because I always say this: the people that you have in your plays, I mean, they sing, they dance, they act. They're so incredibly talented. But they're going to have gigs the rest of the year too because that's just the Christmas play. So who are these people?
Well, they also do, my other plays. If I do plays in Provincetown or New York, they come with me too. So it's a permanent company. Many of the members have been in it for almost 20 years.
Really?
Yeah, and it's just we have a lot of fun together. We have so much fun, and we want more than anything for the audience to see that.
Yeah.
So, the Orphans have been around a long time, and we will be around a long time until the day I die, on stage dressed as a giant pickle being followed by two storks.
Is that a pickle in your pocket? Exactly. Can I say something to you? You are a fairly outspoken person. You are doing the worst job of selling this Christmas play.
I don't have to.
Yes, you do.
People know about the
do.
Christmas show.
They do.
And we only want the cool people to come anyway. So
now, we do not advise children to come. Is that correct?
No, unless they're
Why
over
would that
16.
be? Why would that be?
Because the show's absolutely filthy.
It is filthy. That is totally correct. So since you don't want to talk much about the show, I'm going to
I do want to talk about the show.
I'm going to talk about it for a second. And what I said is true. Every year we introduce a few more people to it. We expand. We always bring the BPR team. We usually add one or two people.
They always get completely drunk, spilling drinks all over the stage.
Actually, one of our colleagues did do that not too long ago.
Yep.
It is as
He's
much
no longer
fun.
with us.
Well, no, that makes it sound like he died.
He didn't die.
He
He's
left
just
the
no
show.
longer with the show.
Oh my God!
It was an embarrassing incident for
But
all,
I'm going to say,
all involved.
since Ryan is not, it really is a wild amount of fun. The performances, Marjorie said, are brilliant. You're a great writer, and it's just great. It's great fun. So check it out. We're going to promote it a lot, partly because we're in it. GoldDustOrphans.what?
.org, but the thing is, if you want tickets, go on a thing called Ticket Tailor, like a tailor who sews clothes. Ticket Tailor, and you just type in Rosemary's Baby Jesus, and you will get your tickets that way.
Okay.
Now, Ryan, I want you to know one of the things Marjorie and I, other than the politics, the thing we talk about most on this show is healthcare. And you recently had a healthcare experience that I think would be very useful to share.
I would just like to tell our studio audience that James is being very mischievous right now, but I'm going to go along with it because I'm a team player.
Now, you recently had a surgical procedure. Is that correct?
Yes, I saved up my money to get a hair restoration where they take the hair out of the back of your head and they plant it in the front.
And where'd you have it? Like in South Boston or something?
No, I went to Istanbul, Turkey.
And why did you go to Istanbul, Turkey?
Because it's cheaper.
Okay. And tell us what happened, how it went for you.
It was a wild experience because I got there and all this was promised. They're going to give you a hotel and they're going to pick you up at the airport. And the whole thing, I'm like, wow, for this price, that's great. I got to the airport. No one knew anything about me being picked up. I've never been to Turkey before. I finally got to the hotel. The shower smelled like sulfur, like, the water was like sulfur. So the next day I go in for the procedure and the guy says, do you have any diseases? And I said, like what? He's like, A, B, C. And I said, you mean HIV? I said, yeah. Because there was nothing on the forms that said anything about like HIV status. And so I just, I've had it for so long, I didn't really think about it. He then went into this song and dance where he had to call the New York office. Now, remember, this is 2 a.m. in New York because I'm over in Istanbul. He calls some friend of his, and the friend gets on the phone and tells me that it's going to be $600 cash extra for the procedure. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, we're going to need it in cash. Then the other guy walks me through the streets of Istanbul to all these banks to try to make my cards.
From an ATM.
ATM. But of course, I made sure the cards did not work. And then when I asked, why can't I just use my credit card that I used for the original procedure? They were like, oh, the card machine's broken.
Oh,
so
God.
That's how it started. Then
People spoke English, I hope? Some?
Yes, of course.
Good.
During the procedure, I don't know if you've ever been subjected to Turkish rap.
No, I have not.
It's something to behold. And that was going at full blast. And then the two nurses, they had their phones hooked up to the speakers of the Turkish rap. So every once in a while you hear really at the highest volume you possibly could. And I'm lying there, sort of like wondering what the hell's going on. And there must have been 65 phone calls during this whole thing.
The nurses and the physicians were making
the guy putting stapling the hair in my head, had his phone up to the side of his face talking to a friend about a party he was going to.
Now, wait a minute. So I know Joe Biden was one of the first.
The exact same thing, but a primitive version.
That's right, but that was a million years ago. He had it, and it lasted forever. That's the thing about it. And we all know Tom Brady certainly has a lot more hair now than he did when he was younger.
I'd say so.
So this procedure works.
Right? I think it works. I mean, it was something I saved up for. I wanted to do it. Yeah. I think if you want to feel good about yourself, that's going to make you feel good about yourself, then do it.
How much did it hurt?
Oh, I thought you were going to say how much did it cost.
Well, you told us how much it cost.
Yeah. It was, it did not hurt at all, except for the fact that I felt that I was in some bizarre, movie that I wanted to get out of.
Okay, so after you get it done, they do the hair. You said there's a lot of blood in the pillow, so you're bleeding a lot.
Yeah.
And the top of your head doesn't hurt?
Is this lunchtime conversation?
Well, apparently it is.
I'm sorry, but is the top of your head doesn't hurt? You don't have to take
No,
mega
because they
Advil?
shoot it up with a bunch of needles. It's like that scene in Tommy. There's just
Yeah.
needles everywhere.
And how long before you can wash your hair again?
Oh, you got to wash your hair a couple days later, but you only can pat it. I don't want to go into any more of this. The only reason this is brought up is because James wants to do it himself, but he's going to use me as the guinea pig.
Because you used to be a tomato can influencer.
What do you mean used to be?
I think now he could be a hair transplant influencer, and I
don't want to be any sort of influencer. I would just like to influence the audience to come see Rosemary's Baby Jesus.
Okay.
Located
All right.
But I actually do have a
South
question.
Boston.
I do have a question about that.
Yeah.
You sort of used us. For those who are new to you, which some people may be if they just started listening to the show this year, you used your appearances with us to leverage, I'll be kind, a all expenses paid trip to Italy.
Yes.
Because you convinced the tomato in the can industry in Italy that you were a tomato in the can influencer. Is that correct so far?
Well, not exactly.
Well, give us the correct version. What is the exact version?
Well, it was during COVID, and they had all these influencer people, the most despicable people around, who didn't want to go. And I said, hell, I'll go. And so they said, well, do you have any influencer whatever? And I said, well, I'm on this radio show quite a bit. And that was enough for them. So that's
right.
it.
And Ryan had many cans of tomato paste, which didn't you bring them in to share them with us?
No, the whole thing was a scam. We went all
it
over
stewed
Italy,
shock
and there was
involving you.
and we ate food all over Italy, and then none of it had tomatoes in it. So don't ask me why that
But
happened.
what were you influenced? Were you influencing tomato paste?
I was
or
influenced
stewed
by a
tomatoes?
free ticket to Europe is what I was influenced by.
Okay.
So, what is the state of the theater in 20? We talked to Jared about this. I'm serious. We talked to two people in the restaurant or in the food business who were talking about something we knew, how precarious the restaurant business is, even for the best of restaurants. How's the theater business there, Ryan Landry?
It's going great for me. But
and
then
how about for your colleagues?
Well, unlike some theater companies, we actually make art. We don't just fundraise. We actually make art. We spend a lot of time doing it. We spend a lot of money on it, and the results are great audiences.
Yes.
Sold out.
So,
every season is sold out, right?
Yeah. By the time the show opens, a lot of dates are sold out.
So you write these plays, and you're obviously a very good writer. What do you think about the Onion buying the InfoWars website? People know
I think
InfoWars,
it's great,
Alex
except
Jones.
for I think it's great, except for the fact that I think the irony is completely dead in this country.
Because real life is irony.
Exactly, and so I don't think that it's. I mean, I'm glad that Alex Jones should burn in hell. That's without question.
We agree with that.
But the idea of the Onion thinking it's cute to do this, I don't know how many people are going to read it and go, ha, ha, that Onion, they're so clever. And how many people are going to read it as actual news? Because that's the problem we're dealing with now. People are reading blogs, and if people even have blogs, or posts as actual news, and it's just not true. It's horrible. It's an absolutely horrible. We're all doomed. We're hurtling towards the sun. That's why you should come to see Rosemary's Baby Jesus, located in beautiful South Boston.
That's right. And you have a bar so everybody can get their nice drinks before the show starts, take them back to their seats, and go up at intermission and get some more cocktails and bring them back to your
And then
seats.
before you don't feel so, and after a couple drinks, you don't feel so doomed.
That's right.
Are your I mean, you mentioned they travel with you when you do stuff in Provincetown that I've been to, New York, wherever it is, that you're writing and producing. But I assume these performers are all top of the whatever. What are they doing when they're not working with you?
They're doing their jobs. Some are teachers, some are mothers, some are advocates for peace. I mean, they're all over the place. Some are dance teachers, some are vocal teachers. I mean, we have a group of people that are solid that are always with us, about 30 people, and then we have other people that come in for this show or that show.
You know, people wouldn't, if they only know you through the radio, they might not realize how...
I want to say something, James. This is the funniest thing.
It is?
I was in Trader Joe's the other day, and a lady recognized me by my voice from this show, and I thought that was the most wonderful thing.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh.
Yeah, that
That's
happens to my
incredible.
sister all the time. People come up to her and say...
She's not on the show.
Is your sister on the show?
No, she's not, but we sound alike.
Oh, I see. Oh,
and,
you
yeah,
do?
and she's getting tired of it, frankly. People
Are you
coming up to
listening,
her and
Marjorie's
saying-
sister? Would you
Yeah,
call in so we
saying,
can test this
Oh,
theory?
you sound like Marjorie. And she's, no, I'm not Marjorie.
Oh, she doesn't like that,
her sister.
apparently.
I think she's had enough of it, frankly.
Okay, so as I was saying, if people only know you from your sort of public persona, like here and whatever else, you're sort of a fun-loving, wild kind of guy. But like this is a serious question. When you were directing us the other day, you're a no BS kind of character. And in fact, at one point when I actually made a huge mistake and made a suggestion about how Marjorie should read a line, Ryan almost had a stroke and had to be carried out of it because it's not. I am the director. What do you like? This is a serious question.
That is not
What do you
true,
like
James.
What do you like to work
Fake
with?
news. Fake
What
news.
do you like?
Fake news,
What do you
that's
like to
right.
work with, Ryan Landry? I'm
I like-
serious.
Talented people.
No, what do you like to work with? What do they
What
think?
am I like to work with?
Yes.
I'm absolute horror, but I get the job done. And I make sure, because, look, it's a great honor for people to pay to see you.
Yes.
And so many actors live for their resume and their headshot, and they don't think about the audience. They don't even know the audience is there. They're so soaked in their own juices like a can of Dole pineapple. It's like, you got to think about the audience. You have to think about who's sitting out there, who paid to see you. They deserve the very best. And I have to give that to them. If I don't, I can't sleep at night.
So I thought it was incredible the way normally, how do you say your name, Jim, in normal conversation?
My name is Jim Browdy.
That's right. By the end of our interaction with Ryan, how were you saying your name earlier this week?
James S. Browdy is how I was saying it. That is how I was saying it.
You are the gayest straight man that ever existed.
It perfectly fit, for his role as the jackass. I mean, the James.
Well,
S. Browdy
I
fit
don't
it
want to
perfectly.
typecast.
And I, of course, as we said, was the
We're the gentle little lamb.
So he
being
seems
held
impatient with you.
in
Anything
the
else?
center of the manger.
No, you were pretty good. You were good.
Jim was on stage right.
Okay,
Mr.
fine.
Kroll.
What else do you want to say about your play before we move on here, Ryan Landry?
What? You mean you're getting rid of me?
We
so
are.
soon?
You are in about a minute.
Dear
Yes.
God.
What
Well,
were you going to say?
I think everyone should come see it. I mean, the thing is, we have done so many shows about Santa, Rudolph, the whole thing. So it's time to just do something a little bit more edgy. And I think that the people, especially with what happened last week,
Yeah.
people need to
Amen.
laugh.
They need to laugh.
And even though Rosemary's Baby is a horror movie, trust me when I tell you that you will leave laughing and you will be happy that you came.
And may I just say, because we usually go with a big group, we go with our staff.
Our staff and friends, yeah.
It's great to go with one or two people, but I think it's really even better to
So
go with
do
like
I.
4 or 6 people so you can all go out and do the post-show analysis.
Yeah, and no
and
cell phones and no talking.
That's right, no cell phones and no talking.
Yeah.
Okay, Ryan, thank
Ryan,
you
it's
very
great
much.
to see you, and thank you for
Thank you
including
very
us
much.
in your production. We love you as well, Ryan
you so
Landry.
much.
That's right. Ryan is a man of many, many talents, as
He
you
is
said.
of some talents. That's true. No, he is
Okay.
of some talents.
Okay, I want to just tell you. Ooh, where's the line here?
By the way, he's a
I'm on the wrong
fabulous
page.
painter. We didn't get into that. He
No,
is
he's
really
a
a
fabulous
painter.
Okay, we have been speaking with that painter and poet and playwright and influencer in many areas, from tomatoes to hair, Ryan Landry.
He's now a dull pineapple influencer
That's right,
based
a
on what he said a minute
pineapple
ago.
influencer
That's
as well.
next, Ryan.
Okay, coming up after this. Oh, the upcoming holiday show, I want to say, is his Gold Dust Orphans, and it's called Rosemary's Baby Jesus. To book tickets or get more information, go to thegolddustorphans.org. Ryan, thank you very, very much. Okay, after a quick break, we'll end the week in the most Boston Public Radio way with Am I the A-hole? Here are the basics. When someone you know perpetually forgets to bring their wallet, forgets in air quotes, say when they come out to dinner with you at a very expensive restaurant, is it permissible to remember to bring their wallet for them? Call or text us at 877-301-8970. This is Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
During Donald Trump's first term in office, appointing federal judges became one of his biggest accomplishments.
We could be looking at a Trump judiciary for the next generation or so.
I'm Elsa Chang. How a second Trump term could cement and extend that legacy in the courts. On All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And We Clean Heat Pumps, serving the region with cleaning and maintenance of ductless mini-split heat pumps, helping to purify air and reduce mold, dust, and debris as fall approaches. More at WeCleanHeatPumps.com. And Trinity Rep, presenting A Christmas Carol, a tradition reimagined anew every year, playing November 23rd through December 29th at the Providence Performing Arts Center. You can get your tickets at ppacri.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are live at the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. By the way, on our TikTok page, Boston Public Radio, tiktok.com/@BostonPublicRadio is a brand new TikTok, which includes the retraction by Jenny Johnson and Billy Costa of saying the longest running male-female broadcast team in Boston. Thank you, Nicole, for doing that. We're ending our week with Am I the A-hole? We held off yesterday so I could take the day off to, slither around the house, where she finds her sister-in-law's wallet just sitting there. So she grabs it and brings it along. The three of them have their meal, and when the time comes, the sister-in-law reuses her old tired line about, oh, I forgot my wallet. That's when the poster reaches into her post and says, this wallet? The number's 877-301-8970 to call or text. Who's the a-hole here? Is it the sister-in-law always using her brother and his wife for a free meal? Or is the a-hole the original poster who could have done any number of things to handle this, let's say in a more mature, less to catch a predator kind of fashion? The number is 877-301-8970. 8970. Who's the a-hole, Marjorie?
Well, the a-hole is absolutely the woman who always, quote unquote, forgets her wallet. That was the person. And I think we all know people like this. That when I was a kid, we often had dinner with this couple, husband and wife. She doesn't go to a hotel. She comes to stay with them. So she stays in their house and then makes these reservations at these very expensive restaurants. And every time, apparently almost every time they go, this is her thing. She claims when the bill comes that she forgot her wallet yet again. And this woman learned the trick from an episode of 2.5 Men on television.
Really?
Apparently there was somebody on 2.5 Men.
Which side? The woman who went back and got the wallet?
Who went back and got the wallet. Yeah, she went in. So the husband and the cheapskate go to the car. They're in the car. She runs back into the house.
I love this.
The wallet is placed right on top of the suitcase of the chief offender. She grabs it, puts it in her purse, brings it out, and when the bill comes, she pops it right out.
So you say, and our number is 877-301-8970. We'll get to you in a minute. Text or call, that the clear a-hole is the woman who keeps, quote, forgetting to bring money. But I don't know if she's an a-hole, but she's obviously a dope. The other woman, would you keep going to expensive restaurants with your sister-in-law when you knew every single time you went she wasn't going to pay?
No, but I think she does it because her husband would get mad.
How do you know that? Because
it was implied kind of in the story that the husband is kind of not standing up and reining in his sister, so the wife gets stuck with the situation.
So having said that, wait, before you say it, even though I was faulting the woman who keeps letting her be used by her sister-in-law, how great is the moment when the sister-in-law says,
great.
I forgot my wallet, and the woman reaches in her purse and holds it up and says,
right.
This wallet? Does that bring you almost to tears?
The reaction of the cheapskate is she was furious that she had taken her...
She was caught.
Yeah, she was caught, and she said she never should have touched or grabbed her wallet. By the way, a texter just said, everybody has their cell phone with them all the time. Lots of people Venmo. This was the solution. Just say, it's okay. You can Venmo me your share of the
You know how to
meal.
use Venmo?
I do.
I doubt that.
I use it all the time.
I doubt that.
Jim, it's really easy.
Can I say the same thing? I doubt that.
Okay.
877-301-8970. Who is the a-hole in this situation? The woman who always forgets her wallet, or the woman who tricked her sister-in-law and brought the sister-in-law's wallet and then presents it to humiliate the grifter? Oh, we didn't call her a grifter. She is a grifter. That's what she is.
She's a grifter
One
or
of my favorite
cheapskate.
words. Where do you want to go?
Nancy in Arlington. What do you think, Nancy?
Hello, Nancy.
Hi. I think pretty strongly that anything that is fueled by the tactic of shame to have revenge is kind of an a-holy thing to do and to be. And an alternative to that would be to take the wallet and find a private moment either before entering the restaurant or while in the restaurant, maybe in the ladies' room, to say, oh, by the way, I know you always forget your wallet. I know how upset you are about it. I got this for you. And then the next time, if she repeats, then you have an opportunity to think about escalating. But I would always say, anytime you employ shame as a tactic, you're inviting escalation and you're compromising your own humanity.
Are you like a shrink or something?
Wow,
You're
that
incredible.
is a very
What do you
evolved
do for a
answer.
living, Nancy?
Am I a what?
What are
Am I
you? What do you do?
I'm a work-life director for a large university, and I am a clinical social worker, so that makes me a therapist. So I guess that's what you would
Well,
do.
that is what you are. One decent person. That is actually humiliating for both of us. Thank you for an excellent analysis and an excellent call. She's right. I mean, it is shaming the other person.
It is shaming the other person, but only shaming the other person in front of her brother.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're shaming her in front of the entire restaurant.
Why don't you say that to Nancy?
Because she's gone now, Jim. Didn't have the opportunity.
But that's an interesting thing. You are shaming the person. Do you feel any guilt for having done that or no?
No.
No, neither do I. Okay, Nancy's a better person, obviously, than both of us. Or
More
at least one of
evolved, Jim.
us.
She's more evolved. Mary from Boston.
Mary
Thank
from
you for
Boston.
calling.
Hey there, Mary.
Hi, I was going to say really that this is a problem with the spouse because whoever is related to the cheapskate sibling, they need to have a side conversation and say, hey, sis, you come here and you always book some fancy pants restaurant and then you cut out on paying. So we're not going to go. We're going to go to, whatever moderate price restaurant the husband feels, okay about paying for.
That's a good one.
Go ahead. No, it's
Do they
good.
not have Venmo?
Yeah, Venmo.
No, but why didn't we think of that also? That's two calls who thought through this better than we did. Mary, that was excellent. And you're right. Why are we leaving the husband out of this thing? He's a collaborator.
We have texters who say
Thanks, Mary.
the husband is the a-hole. Why doesn't he stand up to his sister? And then we have people who think that the two women here share the a-holeness. This texter, Mark in Waltham, says, if you take someone's wallet and not give it to them, you are inviting the behavior for which the other person is already the proven a-hole. This makes you an a-hole as well.
Yeah, but the drama of the thing is really appealing. Don't you
It
think
is.
it really is appealing, even though it's shame? By the way, why is it, if I may, I know this has nothing to do with anything, our staff, which obviously is not that interested in the discussion we're having, has created photographs, created images, I assume with AI, of me as Maggie Smith as the Dowager Grantham, with my head on her, and I do look very much like Maggie Smith. Why are we doing that, Jamie? Do we have any?
Because
we
of
don't
the
know.
way you said your name.
The James, exactly.
Brody. Yeah, that's
exactly.
right.
That's going to be in the play. You got to go see it. Wendy in Providence, you're next on Boston Public Radio. We're talking about who is the a-hole, the woman who always forgets her wallet, or the sister-in-law who brought the other woman's wallet and humiliated her with it. Hello, Wendy.
Hi, I agree with what Nancy said. I think that shame is just not a motivator. And this woman used her theatrics to basically, shame her sister-in-law. And that's not relationship building. I think an honest conversation before going out to dinner, preemptively knowing that this person is going to probably pull the same stunt would have been really helpful and would have, built a bridge rather than create some distance.
Okay. Wendy, let me run this by you. So Nancy Rhode Island just texted and said that the woman who always ends up paying the bill, she should have given the cheapskate sister her wallet when she got in the car. What do you think about that?
Oh, again, that's kind of like in the moment makes people more reactive. And I think it probably should have been a discussion at home where everyone's comfortable and they're having, everyone's calm and they can have an honest conversation about it, an authentic communication.
Okay, Wendy, are you married?
I am not.
What do you ask? What is that your business?
Because I was thinking that usually husbands and wives or, married couples, spouses, partners don't usually have those kinds of conversations. They end up usually being much more reactive, and you didn't do this and you didn't do that.
You know what all these people are saying? That you and I are the a-holes. I mean, that is essential. Wendy, that was another excellent phone call. Thank you. We have a couple of texts.
Okay.
An anonymous texter says the sister-in-law should ask for proof the cheapskate has her wallet before dining begins. That's a great idea. And then, this is what you've been waiting for, another anonymous texter. When Marjorie says she uses Venmo, Jim says she does not repeatedly, I am sorry to have to point out that Jim is the a-hole.
Yes. Not only do I use Venmo, but I privatize my transactions on Venmo.
You do.
I do too.
You don't.
You know why? Because Juliet Kayyem said you gotta
National security expert.
That's right. She said you got to do that, and she's absolutely right. Because I look at these people that are giving $5 for the laundry or $12 for taking the dog for a walk. It's all that you can see all your friends with these transactions, and it's kind of weird.
Can you do me a favor before you go ahead? Patty, watching on YouTube, said I just tried Ticket Taylor, and I'm unable to find Rosemary's Baby Jesus. Can we contact Ryan and find out what the problem is so we don't send them in the wrong place? I'm sorry, Margie. Where are you going?
I was going to Josh in Waltham. Hi, Josh in Waltham.
Hey, Josh in Waltham.
Hello, Jim and Marjorie. So first of all, as a member of Ryan Landry's tribe, you definitely, Mr. Browday, are the gayest straight person that
I'm honored. I'm
honored,
Josh. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're an honorary.
Thank you.
Honorary career.
I take that as high praise.
And second of all, so I've been working on bettering myself for I don't know, a few months now, and the previous callers are getting to me. I'm like, oh my God, because my gut reaction was absolutely, you go girl, whip out the thing at dinner. But the thing being the wallet, thank you. But and then I was thinking, well, okay, in the car, that's a better, do it sooner than later. But yeah, it can be reactionary. It can come off as you're ambushing her or something. So I guess it does make sense to just, before leaving the house, just say, hey, do you have your wallet? Because I'm sure Venmo, this woman is just going to be like, oh, I don't have it, or I can't log in or something. So, or just say, hey, I can't pay for this, But I if that is being an a-hole, doing it the way she did it, then I don't want to not be an a-hole.
Exactly.
Josh, that was a spectacular call. Don't go away.
Oh, we have
until a few months ago when you decided to improve yourself. What were you doing?
Sure. I was living at the intersection of, of being a good person and being a petty person. And I'm trying to just move down the street a little bit. That's all.
You are spectacular. That was one of the great calls. You are terrific, Josh. Call us again. Thank you very much for your honesty there. We appreciate
I want to point out this person who couldn't get the tickets for Ryan's show. Try the golddustorphans.org.
Correct.
Orphans.org, and you should be able to get tickets.
877-301-8970. Okay, if you just tuned in, here's the issue again. A woman, a sister-in-law, regularly goes to an expensive restaurant with her brother and her brother's wife. The sister-in-law always says she forgot her wallet. The wife of the sister-in-law's brother is very upset this happens, so she sneaks back into the house before they go to the next expensive dinner and takes the grifting sister-in-law's wallet, brings it to the table so that when the sister-in-law says, oops, I forgot my wallet, she says, aha, is this your wallet? Humiliates her. And we're asking who is the a-hole, and a lot of you have very well thought out opinions here.
Listen to this one. This is from Paul in Worcester. Back when everyone had cash, my dad taught me to always buy the first round of drinks, so you're covered. There was a guy in this group of friends who always bought the last round, meaning when the night was over, the guy would say, well, I was about to buy a round of drinks, and by that time, the people had left, and when the group finally said, don't worry, you can buy the first round next time, that was the last time the guy accepted to get the invitation to get together with the group.
By the way, here's one you might like. An anonymous texter says you should not shame people unless, of course, they're wearing a dickie and whale pants.
That's right.
Now, by the way, the whale
Jim
pants,
has worn both.
For recent listeners to the show, is when Marjorie wrote a savage piece about me in 1990 in the Herald when she hadn't even met me.
Great column. I had met you.
Yes, you had. No, you hadn't.
Twice.
Actually, you had.
I'd interviewed you,
and
actually.
And she savaged me.
Made a big impression, apparently.
Oh, I was doing a ballot question. She sided with the other side, which lost, by the way. I won. And to humiliate me, she said, this is a guy who owns a Volvo station wagon, which I did not.
You were about to buy one.
I was, but you didn't know that. And I wore whale pants, which I did not, nor have I ever. But in an attempt to demean me, she said I was wearing whale pants. That's very funny, isn't it? That's for the list. I did wear a dickie, though, for many years. Not then, but many years. For many years. Matt in Rochester, you're on Boston Public Radio for Am I the A-Hole? Hello there, Matt.
Hi, guys. So I'm just kind of confused.
Yeah.
If she's going back to their house, why can't she pay them then?
Why can't she what?
Pay them back. when they get back to their house?
Because she never does. That's what happens.
You can't give a credit card to your sister.
She has kind of a scam going where she will get
she
there.
has no cash in her wallet?
She says they ask her to pay them back, and she never has. Never has. So she's got a scam. That's what's going on here, Matt.
So, Matt, are you with us, or are you with the really honorable people who've called who said shaming is not a good thing? Who are you with?
I'm with you guys, absolutely.
Yeah, humiliate the person. Shame her, shame the crap out of her. Yeah, I feel bad about it, but that's where we are. Matt, thank you for the
And
call.
you know,
I appreciate it.
at the end of the dinner, the woman that grabbed the wallet said she asked for separate bills, at which point the sister-in-law said, no, we need one bill because I forgot my wallet. I don't have my wallet. And that's when she reached for the purse and said, I do.
Love it. By the way, this is a really good text from an anonymous texter. Why are you all anonymous? Even better, have the woman open the wallet, the one who brought it, make a creaking sound, then blow out the dust inside. That is borderline brilliant, I should say. In any case.
A lot of people are blaming the husband for not talking to his sister, too, and saying she should clean up her act and stop booking all these very expensive restaurants. Ellen in New Hampshire. Oh, maybe this is the Ellen that was looking for you at Endicott College.
Oh, that's so funny.
Hi, Ellen. Are you the Ellen that was looking for Jim?
Let me tell you, I am laughing so hard, I almost can't stand up. Ellen in New Hampshire.
No, I love the campus of Endicott College, but no, this is not the Ellen.
Oh, okay.
I think that the wife should say to the husband, "Look, we're not going out to eat,
Yeah.
and a nice meal, because you never see your sister." And I would say to the woman, don't ever take somebody's wallet, because if something went missing that wallet and discovered that it was gone for 6 months, the sister-in-law would always suspect that her brother's wife took it.
You're a genius. But by the way, you suggested something inadvertently, even though you didn't say this. Why didn't the woman go in and just take everything out of the woman's wallet instead of taking the wallet itself?
Because she's an honest person, Jim.
Oh, that is true. I hadn't thought of that. Ellen, thank you. That was really good. Ellen, thank you very much.
Jim,
for
a
calling.
texter would like you to explain what the heck are whale pants.
No, whale pants. In all seriousness, people belong to country clubs, and I'm not against that.
You had a whale license plate, though.
I did have a whale license plate. That's not like wearing whale pants.
It's close enough.
I mean, let's look at this. This is a woman who has the highest ethics, she says, in journalism. Jim Browdy, who's leading the opposition to question 3, she writes, has a Volvo station wagon. Did I have a Volvo?
I didn't say you had one.
Yes, you did.
I said you looked like you had a
he
Volvo
wears.
station wagon.
He's the type who wears whale pants. And so, did I have whale pants? No, I did not have whale pants. You heard on the street? Yeah, that's the word on the street. Yeah. By the way, whale pants, for those who just said, what are they? They're pants that have like whales emblazoned on them. You know, sort of like whale pants.
I think we should copy about 500 of those columns and give them out, Jim. That's what I think.
Josh in Waltham is actually back again. He was the great caller a minute ago. He says, when I began working on being a better person a few months ago, I stopped listening to Jim and Marjorie. Coincidence? Exactly. Thank you very much.
Marlene and Quincy, thank you for calling, Marlene.
Go ahead, Marlene.
Hi. I think the person that's not paying is the a-hole. I had to stop work and call in immediately because this is just driving me crazy.
Good.
We had a friend of ours who we stopped going out for dinner with because she would only want to pay for her portion of what she felt she ate or drank.
Drives me
and
nuts.
that drove us crazy. And she would order the tiered seafood platter and go, yeah, we can all share that. And then she only would throw in $5.
So what? You stopped going out with her? What'd you do?
Well, we kind of stopped being friendly and hanging out, unfortunately. And we just don't invite her out for dinner anymore because it upset the entire table. It wasn't just me, and she was my friend. And I was like, this is embarrassing. You can't do this.
Can I tell you, the exasperation in your voice, I get, because I've had similar experiences with friends. We've had this discussion on the show. If someone orders an expensive bottle of champagne, that's one thing. Other than that, you divide the damn check. I mean, and if you can't afford to divide a check, you say in advance, I'm a little short, which is fine, and I can't do it. But other than that, it is so classless. I'm with you, Marlene. That was an excellent call. Thank you for making it.
You know, I want to point out that
What's
Josh, the previous caller, has gotten
Josh from
lots of text messages saying how much they loved your
He was
voice
really
and
good.
enjoy your
He was
call.
good.
So, Josh, if you're still listening, you're a big hit this afternoon. And I have been advised I need to issue a retraction about the whale pants and just say Jim Browdy is the kind of man who prefers to wear dickies.
I did that. If you had written that, I would have been fine with that because for a few years of my life I did, and I bet I know somebody else who did or does.
Really, I've never worn a dickie.
No, not you. Do you? By the way, nice haircut. Do you? And by the way, that interview with Cillian Murphy.
Oh my God, it was
he
great.
is unbelievably appealing character. I mean, just great. It was on Jared's show yesterday.
New movie. It's out this weekend. It's
Whatever
playing
it's called.
downtown.
Whatever.
Yeah,
It was great. But anyway, so do you know what we're talking about here?
I do know what you're
Okay,
talking
you
about.
ever gone out with anybody who says, I left my wallet at home?
I
can't.
have,
And what do you do in those circumstances?
Well, you kind of let it pass, but you can't get away with that anymore because of Venmo.
That's what Marjorie said. That was
right?
Marjorie's thing.
And then if they say, well, I don't have Venmo, you say, well, let me help you.
Oh,
and then you
at the
have
moment.
them downloaded in
Oh.
the moment.
That's
and then
right.
it.
That's right, because it really is easy to use. Oh, one of the texters points out that whale pants were on the jerk mayor in the Jaws movie was wearing whale
He
pants.
was?
I believe so.
Well, maybe
that's
you were
right.
writing about him and not me.
He wasn't wearing shark pants, which might have been more apropos.
Did she
for
ever
that
write a
particular
vicious
movie.
column about you when she was at the Herald of the Globe?
No, they were all just, you're
lovely.
Idolizing.
Thank you.
That was the word I was looking for.
Exactly.
Did you never wear whale pants, Jim?
In all seriousness, I have flaws. I would admit that. The notion that I would buy whale pants. Now, I did wear a dickie, so maybe that would suggest. No, I didn't wear whale pants.
my God.
Flipped up the collar.
And I didn't have a Volvo station wagon.
Oh my God, we have a
Yet.
picture of the mayor. I forget the actor's name.
Those
The
are
mayor from Jaws.
anchors. Those are not called whales.
Hamilton.
They're called anchors. Those
Anchors.
are not
No,
whales.
they're not whales.
I have
But
anchor
they're the
pants.
same.
I had many anchor pants, but I did not. Okay,
Lobster
this
pants,
is really
anchor pants,
destroying my
crab
reputation.
pants.
Sicily
such
in
as it is.
Leominster.
No, the show's over.
Oh, it's over.
You did this
okay,
at
I'm
noon,
sorry.
too.
Larry, it's-
Cicely, call Marjorie at home. I'm really sorry.
I think Larry Vaughn is the name of the actor. Is that
Whatever.
correct? Murray Hamilton.
Whoever
okay,
it
I'm
is.
sorry.
Okay. What are you doing? Cicely, we really apologize. I'm really
sorry.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
She's sorry.
Okay.
What are you doing on the show quickly?
Am
What
I
are you
still
doing?
here?
You
Yes.
are, yeah. What are you doing?
We're talking about the Grammys this week because the Grammy nominations just came out.
Did this
And we'll
week?
talk about
Oh.
the snubs and the people who got a lot. We'll talk about the wicked porn that came out this week. I don't know if you've heard
that
about
is
this.
the best on the
Whoops.
kids' game?
The
Oh,
dolls,
the
yeah.
Mattel?
That
Was it
whoops
Mattel?
so great.
Oh,
Why didn't we
whoops.
talk about that? Go
I don't
ahead.
know. we
Copy
should've.
editing issues, and then we'll talk about the new inductees into the Toy Hall of Fame, and we talk a lot about the live theater tax credit on the show. We have an update.
Oh,
Excellent.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
Thank you
I
very
mean,
much, Brian.
Whoever he is.
Jared.
This is going well for Marjorie today.
How do we get from Jared to Brian?
I don't know. Anyway, thank you for listening to another edition of
On
Boston
one
Public Radio.
on one show on our old station, I'm raising my right hand. On one show, Marjorie on live
okay.
radio. I'm not done. Referred to me. She called me Liz. That's her sister. Peter. That's her ex-husband. Harry. Who's Harry?
My dog.
Her former dog.
Harry the Peanut.
Exactly.
Harry the Pea.
On one
Best dog
show.
from C to C.
So I think you should not being
Okay.
called Brian. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much,
you.
Jared Bowen.
Thank you.
And thank you
Thank
for
you.
listening to Boston Public
Stick
Radio,
around
for
for the
coming
show
down to the
here.
Boston Public Library. We have a podcast you can listen to 24/7 or check out our TikTok page. Monday, you're going to be joined by two MIT economists who recently won a Nobel Prize. Plus, the Ground Truth Project's Charlie Sennett, Massachusetts State Auditor Diana DiZaglio, she's the one that just won that big, huge ballot question, and Harvard Professor Khalil Gibran Mohammed. I want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer, John the Claw Parker, who just gave me the actor's name from Jaws. Our executive producer is Jimmy Bologna. Thanks to our staff here at the BPL, Maddie Guyard, Bill Francis, Juan Jose Cadena, Olivia Corcio, and thanks to our host of the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Stay tuned to The Culture Show with Jared Bowen, which sounds like a great show.
Can I say
today.
quickly this? Lori
What?
on YouTube wants to know if Jim and Marjorie are in every show with the Gold Dust Orphans Christmas show. The answer is we are.
Well, not.
It's a taped piece, yeah.
It's taped.
It's very funny,
I think we're
though.
puppets, aren't we?
We're puppets,
We're
yeah.
puppets.
We're puppets, yeah.
Okay.
But it's our voices.
Anyway, thank you for listening to Boston Public
Time's up.
Radio. I hope you have a great weekend. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Brian Browdy.
In whale pants.
What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show. Next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Revision Energy. Sunbug Solar is now part of Revision Energy, a solar installer committed to being a renewable energy partner for New England and working to fight climate change. Learn more at sunbugsolar.com. 2 Indigenous artists travel to the Wind River Reservation to reconnect with their tribal homelands and present their artwork to a somewhat isolated community. Watch The Art of Home, a Wind River story, tomorrow night at 9 on GBH 44.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review. First up, the Grammy nominations are out. We'll go over the snoozers, snubs, and surprises. From there, we remember Boston's own jazz giant Roy Haynes. The pioneering drummer who earned the nickname Snap Crackle died this week at age 99. He was one of the last remaining musicians of jazz's swing and bebop eras. Then goodbye, Bridge Over Troubled Water. Hello, Likeness, my good friend. Simon and Garfunkel break their sound of silence, making amends over lunch in an exchange that reportedly brought Art Garfunkel to tears. Plus, lions and tigers and pornography, oh my! Mattel merchandise for the Wicked movie mistakenly sent people to a website with XXX content. And it's not a satirical headline, it's for real. The Onion buys Alex Jones's InfoWars in a bankruptcy auction. That and more next on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The incoming Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, tells he and his colleagues are leaving all the options on the table to ensure President-elect Trump's nominees get confirmed.
All these people have a process that they have to go through. All these nominees are, advise and consent. That's the Senate's constitutional role when it comes to confirmation of nominations to the executive branch of the government, and we take that role seriously, but we also are not going to allow the Democrats to obstruct or block President Trump and the will of the American people.
Thune acknowledged likely opposition in the Senate to certain nominees, such as former Representative Matt Gaetz for Attorney General and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Health and Human Services Secretary. Asked about the recess appointment option that would allow President-elect Trump to get around the confirmation process, Thune said that's on the table, but hopes it doesn't get to that. President Biden is in Peru, where he will meet with several world leaders, including those from South Korea and Japan. NPR's Asma Khalid reports Biden is trying to cement this trilateral relationship as he wraps up his presidency and prepares other nations for the incoming Trump administration.
This three-way cooperation on technology and security has been a hallmark of the Biden administration, and it's a relationship they hope the Trump team will embrace. Here's Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, speaking to reporters on Air Force One.
And given the bipartisan support for it, we fully expect that it would continue under the next administration, though, of course, they'll make their own decisions.
This relationship is part of Biden's broader strategy of working with allies in the region to counter China's influence. And this meeting with South Korea and Japan comes a day ahead of a separate meeting that Biden is holding tomorrow with his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping. Asma Khalid, NPR News, Lima.
The man accused of murdering Georgia nursing student Laken Riley is on trial. Riley's killing in February became a flashpoint in the national conversation about immigration. Emily Wu Pearson of member station WABE reports the defendant charged in Riley's death is a Venezuelan national who entered the U.S. illegally.
Prosecutors are painting Jose Ibarra as a man who was, quote, hunting for females on the day Riley was killed. They allege Ibarra was looking into a window earlier that morning in a nearby apartment complex in Athens, and that he encountered Riley while she was out for a run. Ibarra's charges include murder, kidnapping, aggravated assault, and tampering with evidence. He waived his right to a jury trial earlier this week, meaning his case will be heard and decided by a judge. A defense attorney said the evidence is circumstantial and does not prove his client's guilt. The state of Georgia is seeking life in jail without parole. For NPR News, I'm Emily Wu Pearson in Atlanta.
U.S. stocks are trading lower this hour. The Dow is down 363 points, or more than 0.75%. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Red Line riders will see another big service disruption starting next week. We have more from GBH's Jeremy Siegel.
On Sunday night, trains stopped running for 1 week between Harvard and Broadway. And on the final day of the shutdown, the 24th, it will extend to JFK UMass. This closure is for track work and part of the T's system-wide push to remove all slow zones by the end of the year, a goal they're close to reaching. The blue and orange lines are now running at full speed, but the red and green lines still have 2 slow zones each. Shuttle buses will be replacing regular service at most stations during this latest closure. Jeremy Siegel, GBH News 89.7.
A Cambridge condominium complex where units have sold for more than $1 million will be evacuated for at least a year to address structural problems inside the roughly 60-year-old building. According to several reports, the Riverview condominiums on Mount Auburn Street will be empty for at least the next year after engineers discovered several issues with the reinforced concrete used to construct the building in the early 1960s. The Globe reports that residents of the complex agreed to move out beginning on Monday and will continue doing so over the course of the next 4 weeks. In sports, Bruins Celtics off tonight. Both are in action tomorrow at the Garden. The Bruins have the day game. The Celtics have the night game. The Patriots host the Rams at Gillette on Sunday. Sunny, upper 50s today, 55 right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Made in Cookware. Made in Cookware is crafted by chefs for chefs and designed for restaurants and home kitchens around the world. Their cookware can be found at madeincookware.com. This is NPR.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Moonbox Productions, presenting The Thanksgiving Play, serving up history and humor with the steaming side dish of hypocrisy. Opens November 21st at Arrow Street Arts in Cambridge. Tickets at arrowstreetarts.org. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan with Medicare Advantage plans that combine comprehensive coverage, including prescription, dental, and vision connected to expert care. Plan details are at mgbadvantage.org.
Welcome to the Culture Show, live at the Boston Public Library. I'm Jared Bowen.
I'm Callie Crossley.
And I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. It's time for our Arts and Culture Week in Review. Here's what it sounded like.
The 2025 Grammy nominations are here with artists like Beyoncé, Charli XCX, and Billie Eilish topping the list. But with the nominations come the inevitable snubs and shockers.
Legendary jazz drummer Roy Haynes, known for his innovative rhythms and lasting influence across generations of jazz, passed away on November 12th at the age of 99.
Roy Haynes.
Toy maker Mattel is apologizing for a Wicked mistake. A web link on the packaging for 2 dolls promoting the new movie Wicked was actually a link to a porn site.
It was quite the haul for Italy's art fraud squad. Fake Picassos, fake Warhols, fake Banksys. In all, more than 2,000 counterfeit modern artworks were seized after police smashed an organised criminal network of fraudsters from Italy, Spain, France and Belgium.
The satirical news site The Onion just did the most oniony thing ever and purchased all of Alex Jones's InfoWars assets in a bankruptcy auction.
My little pony, my little pony. Oh, I love her so. I love you, my little pony. The Transformers, robots in disguise. Transformers, more than meets the eye.
The Transformers from Hasbro.
Well, as you just heard, the Grammy nominations are out, delivering snubs, surprises, and snoozers. We're remembering Roxbury-born Roy Haynes, the pioneering jazz drummer, has died at age 99. He was one of the last remaining musicians of jazz's swing and bebop eras. Plus, parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme heals old wounds. Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel have made amends with the emotional reunion, reportedly bringing Garfunkel to tears. From there, a typo begets porno. In releasing their new Wicked dolls, a Mattel merchandising snafu results in spiking traffic. It's spicy, too, I think.
Spiking spicy traffic.
Exactly. For their new Wicked dolls, a Mattel merchandising error led them to that website. Meanwhile, more than 2,000 fakes have been seized in a major European art forgery bust. And truth is stranger than parody. The Onion buys Alex Jones's InfoWars in a bankruptcy auction. But first up, we sift through the Grammy nominations, where Beyoncé has further cemented her queendom, but also where, when it comes to Cher, the Recording Academy doesn't believe sharing is caring. It snubbed her again.
How dare they?
How dare. We have proclaimed that Cher is kind of our unofficial mascot here on the Culture Show. Do you know that she, in 60 decades of her career, has been nominated?
Decades? I mean, I know
6
she's
decades.
old, but Jared.
Do I need to go back and restart the show? 6. This is how worked up I am. 6 decades, 60 years of Cher's career. She has had 7 nominations and I believe just 1 win.
That's
and
low.
Everybody thought she would have a lock for best traditional vocal performance for her Christmas album. That did not happen. But we were happy to see Beyoncé do better than she did at the American Country Music Award, or the Country Music Association nominations, which recently came out and gave her 0.
Yeah, that's right. Well, she got 11 this time, so this is a historic best. She's even bested the number that her husband Jay-Z has. Except, I'm going to say right now, I'll be shocked if she gets 2. I'll just be shocked.
She is nominated in some country categories as well, right? Which I think is, I think that's kind of important.
As I said, we'll see. I'm thinking it's going to be like 2, because as people may recall at the Grammys last year, Jay-Z just said, "Hey, I know this is, you all are not going to like it, but let me just say, really?
Yeah.
Here's my wife with all of this stuff. Here's Adele on stage saying, why am I here? She should be here. All this stuff, and she's never come on." So anyway, that's my prediction.
I mean, I guess it puts her in good category if she's snubbed like Cher. I mean,
yes,
this is true.
This is my prediction.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Grammys are such an interesting thing. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. It is the music world is so fractured now. There are all of these genres and subgenres, and it's tough to have any sort of song or album really truly break through into the mainstream in such a huge way. And so I think it's, there are tons of categories in the Grammys, and I think they do their best, but to be like one big, organization like the Grammys and try to have your finger on the pulse of all of these different styles of music and the way they're being consumed, I think it's just really difficult. So you got to kind of, I think you take it with a grain of salt in terms of whether you get a Grammy, whether you get nominated for a Grammy, etc. It's still awesome, though, I would imagine, if you're an artist and you get nominated.
Well, Edgar, as you say, because the Grammys are so vast, we decided to just break it down knowing 3 things that we each decided were pretty extraordinary. And so I'm going to start with mine, which is, of all the categories, and we're talking about the Grammys, so this is mostly music, but I'm focusing on the one really not music category, which is the Grammy Award for Best Audiobook, Narration, and Storytelling. This could be a matchup for the ages. A face-off for the ages, because these are all audiobooks. So we have Barbra Streisand against Dolly Parton, against George Clinton, against Jimmy Carter, the 100-year-old Jimmy Carter, all for their books. And the 5th book in that category, it would go to the producer Guy Oldfield, but it's for All You Need Is Love, the Beatles, in their own words. So you could actually say that this is against the Beatles, too.
Yeah.
This is going to be one of the most extraordinary categories, I think. How do you begin to pick among these legends, and all are exquisite at performance?
That'll be one I'll keep my eye on, because I wouldn't be able to pick, because there's so many right there I love. Well, for me...
Well, before we go to you, we'll listen to a little bit of Jimmy Carter's latest spoken word album, Last Sundays in the Plains, a centennial celebration, and this track features a rendition of America the Beautiful with Darius Rucker.
Wouldn't it be nice if the United States of America could be a superpower in maintaining peace? And to be a champion of human rights, and a champion of environmental quality, and a champion of equality.
Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain.
See, Jimmy Carter knows how to play, because
that man
the rest...
is 100 years old.
He's 100 years
he
old.
He is 100 years old.
And he knows how to play, because those other books have musical interludes too, because they're all musicians. So he knew how to get in the game.
Yeah, he knows how to. Exactly. Hey, listen, Jimmy Carter has 10 Grammy nominations.
That is so
this
crazy.
is his 10th Grammy nomination. That sounds like more than Cher.
It is. It's 3 more than Cher. So, Callie, what's yours?
I am so delighted that finally Beyonce's Cowboy Carter is getting some recognition in the the country categories, as you said, Edgar, and in other places. But what she did on that album, as so many of us were so excited about, is she highlighted people that I did not know. One of them was Linda Martell, who knew, was the first black woman commercially successful in country music way back. Got pushed out because of a lot of racism, but, won top awards. She, at one point, one of her songs made it up into the top 40 of, billboards. This is country. This is great. So this is one of the artists that Beyonce highlighted and made sure that we knew her history. We're going to play a bit from one of the songs. She's on 2 songs on Cowboy Carter. This is called Spaghetti.
Genres are a funny little concept, aren't they? Yes, they are.
That Beyonce Virgo.
In theory, they have a simple definition that's easy to understand. But in practice, well, some may feel confined.
I swear for God is by the
So that's Linda in her own voice. Beyonce sampled her.
Yeah.
And, the whole album in many ways was a statement about placing her and placing other people in certain genres and how she broke through. And so Linda Martell couldn't, but Beyonce could, and she used the woman that did so in the past on her album. So it's like 2 or 3 layers deep, this performance.
Well, I have to say, I think it's fair to say that when Spotify sends me its creepy, I've been watching you all year email at the end of the year telling me your favorite songs, this is going to be my #1 album for sure. Edgar, what's yours?
Excellent. Well, why don't we just hear a little? We'll start there, and then I'll talk about what we're hearing. So that is the voice of Aoife O'Donovan, who is Boston-born and raised, and a member of the extended GBH family. She's the daughter of our late colleague Brian O'Donovan. She got 2 nominations, one for Best American Roots Song for that tune, All My Friends, and the album itself, which is also called All My Friends, got a nod for Best Folk Album. It's a really interesting project that started way back in around 2019. She was asked by the Orlando Philharmonic Orchestra to put together a suite of songs in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment being passed in women's suffrage. And she basically uses those songs as part of a larger album. The whole thing is a meditation on the women's suffrage movement, and is just like a really inspired, a little bit different from what her normal stuff is. There's more orchestration because she was collaborating for this project for the the Orlando Philharmonic, but also still has some of the kind of more folksy stuff that you might expect from Aoife O'Donovan. So just kind of a congratulations to her, and it's a cool album and a cool project, and kind of awesome that it's getting recognized.
We are thrilled to see that for her. And by the way, the Grammys are February 2nd, so lots of time to digest all of the nominees.
Put it on your calendar.
Well, speaking of the Grammys, these are the beats of Boston-born jazz legend and Grammy Lifetime Achievement honoree Roy Haynes. This is Reflection from the Roy Haynes Trio 1959 album We Three. The pioneering drummer was 99 when he died this week in New York. Of course, has gone down to huge acclaim for being how singular he was on the drums. But then, of course, you add that to his place in history, working with virtually all of the greats, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, all the way up into the 70s. This was an extraordinary life, and we get to claim him as one of our own because he learned music right here growing up in Roxbury, and basically venturing out of school when he was a young 16 years old, and then just rocketing forward ever after that.
And we just can't say enough about the roots in Boston and what that gave him. One of his brothers, Douglas, was a trumpeter. Another brother was a very well-beloved community activist, C. Vincent. And then I went to church at 12th Baptist for many years, where Reverend Michael C. Haynes, who died in 2019, was his brother as well. So their family history here is so strong and deep, and he always credited what, as you said, he learned here and got from just the culture of the place and put that in place. I think what's so amazing about him that, because when we do these stories, people say, well, what makes somebody stand out if they're a master of a craft? And for him, it was innovation in a way that they often don't place with drummers. You don't think about drummers that way. Drummers are great, obviously. We know some great ones. But the one characteristic that somebody was pointing out that defined him was this broken rhythms, provocative syncopation.
Syncopation.
Same thing I can say.
We were saying it with syncopation.
Right. And
I get it.
Improvisatory, as he said, Hines tailored techniques that no one has been able to duplicate. He always felt like he really wanted to, put his stamp on it, and he did so while supporting all these other great artists.
And before we get to you, Edgar, let's listen to a little bit more of that. This is from the Roy Haynes drum solo, Hippity Hop.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. The virtuosity is one thing, but also just the sheer range and versatility. I mean, when you think about his place in the canon, he grew up idolizing Joe Jones, who was Count Basie's drummer, right? And his earliest work was square in the swing era. I mean, he did work with Lester Young, the famous saxophonist, for a number of years, and then he becomes crucial to the development of bop, the development of post-bop. And as you said, Jared, all of this exploration that happens through the 70s in jazz, it splinters into a million different directions, and he's at the forefront of all of that. And so that kind of versatility, to be able to play that way. Also, it's like he played as an accompanist with Sarah Vaughan, so he could lay back and kind of just be there and support a singer. He played with Thelonious Monk, who's very brainy and these sort of big spacey things. And then he could do, like we just heard there, that thing where there's almost melody in his drumming. And so that kind of versatility, that kind of range over that course of time. And let's not forget that he was a really well-dressed man. And in fact, in 1960, Esquire named him one of America's best-dressed men. So also just a great dresser. He loved cool cars. I mean, what a cool dude.
I know, I love that reading about the cars and racing. Miles Davis and Charlie Parker, I think. And also, we wonder what the secret is to living that old. His was clean living, something we don't often describe about among musicians, which is really interesting. And one other thing I want to say is something I didn't even observe, but somebody else wrote in one of his obituaries, is that he was able to draw sound out, not beat it in. And I think, again, it goes back to the singularity that he had, and that he always improvised and he innovated, moved forward, but always in such a way that you could always tell it was his, which is just extraordinary to leave your mark in that way.
Pat Metheny called him the father of modern drum.
Well, that makes us wonder, is the notorious friction between Simon and Garfunkel troubled water under the bridge? The two broke their sound of silence in a reunion lunch that reportedly brought Garfunkel to tears. What are your thoughts on this, Callie?
No, I want to hear your thoughts.
No, we're going to end with my thoughts, because I have some very clear thoughts as somebody who has spent some time with Art Garfunkel.
Because
this is kind of nonsense, right? I mean,
well, wait a minute. So I believe in the reconciliation, okay? So I thought the lunch that Garfunkel said that he reached out to Paul and they talked and cried, and did somebody hurt somebody's feelings? Oh, let's put that, as you say, under the bridge, over troubled water, blah, blah, blah. Then I continued to read and thought, oh, he's on tour for a new album.
Yes, exactly. Point number one.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, that took a little edge off of it.
No, look, here's the thing. A few things here. One, Simon and Garfunkel were and are incredible. I mean, just like, and I, admittedly, I'm a huge fan. In fact, I saw them on the 2003 reunion tour, one of the greatest things I've ever seen. They're beautiful together, right? But I do find it, when I say it's nonsense, these are two men in their 80s, right? They broke up for the first time in 1970. That's when Bridge Over Troubled Water came out. The idea that these two men who got together in 1981 for a concert, did a tour in 2003, have had various other, like that they haven't talked through what the issue is. I mean, I just
that
find
happens
it,
though.
Well, no, I mean,
therapist rooms are full of people who haven't talked through the issues. What are you talking about?
I find it strange, especially Paul Simon, who at times can be so insightful and seem to have such a grasp of the human psyche and emotion and all of that in his songwriting, and Art Garfunkel, who can at least present that in these soulful singing that he does.
Yeah, but your artistry is over here. Your other part of your life can be.
No, they're in their 80s.
Bifurcate it. Yeah, it does.
And they're still fighting about this. I mean, they've been friends since they were in grade school.
Let me enter now, because one of them is fighting about this, and that one is Art Garfunkel. Yes, they've both said things over the years, but I had the same thought this morning. I thought, wait, why are we talking about this today? Not why are we talking about it in the show, but why are people talking about this? And then I realized, yes, Art Garfunkel has a new album, and he also has shows that he wants to promote, so he's trotted this back out. So this is what he had said about Paul Simon years ago, where Paul Simon finally allegedly decided to walk away. This is Art Garfunkel. How can you walk away from this lucky place on top of the world? This is when they split up Paul. What's going on with you, you idiot? How could you let that go, jerk? Okay, let me tell you what I have observed about Art Garfunkel, who is one of the most despicable human beings I have ever had the misfortune of meeting.
Don't sugarcoat it.
Wow.
I did a book event with him, and he treated the people behind the scenes so horribly, so disrespectfully. You want to know why he was so irate? Because we were starting about 30 seconds late. He actually turned to one of the people who worked for the publishers and said, I don't even want to see you. Get out of my sight. I don't want to look at you. And for years, I chided myself because I thought, why did I then go on stage and do this talk where he talked about humility and kindness, and spirituality and kumbaya? And I thought if I had begged off, then he really would have lost it, and it was unfair to the bookstore, it was unfair to the publisher, it was unfair to the audience who had gathered that day. I have never, ever in my entire career seen such bad behavior from a celebrity. So run, Paul, run. Don't go anywhere near this. You know what you did years ago by walking away.
There you go. Well, that puts the cap on it, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good.
All right. Well, you're listening to the Arts and Culture Week in Review, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. Coming up, Italian police bust an art forgery ring, seizing more than Oh, look, Art Garfunkel is calling. They seized more than 2,000 fake works of art. Plus, what's that you say about wicked porn? That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
As more and more aspects of campus life become polarized, college presidents have been thrust into the spotlight.
It's more in the public eye than it used to be.
Presidents are on edge all the time.
It felt like my mouth was taped shut.
It's in the best of times like tap dancing on a surfboard.
I'm Kirk Carapezza. We discuss how the college presidency became a lightning rod in our country's culture war on our podcast, College Uncovered. Listen wherever you get podcasts.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Boston South Visual Art Trail, including Attleboro Arts Museum, the Art Complex Museum in Duxbury, Fullercraft Museum in Brockton, Plymouth Center for the Arts, and South Shore Art Center, Cohasset. BostonSouthVisualArtTrail.org. And the Boston Philharmonic with conductor Benjamin Zander, performing Purcell's Shockney, Holst's The Planets, and Elgar's Cello Concerto with cellist Alexander Bailey at Symphony Hall November 17th. Tickets at bostonphil.org.
I'm Judy Ewell in for Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, counter-protesters are expected to come out when the anti-abortion men's march is held in Boston tomorrow. Local cyclists will urge leaders on Beacon Hill to help prevent cyclist and pedestrian deaths. Also, during President-elect Trump's first term, one of his biggest accomplishments was appointing federal judges. We'll hear how his second term could cement and extend that legacy. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Kelly Crossley and Edgar B. Horwick III. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing my wicked green today. And if you're just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review. So if you're a copy editor in search of work, you can probably find a job at Mattel, where a misprinted URL on the packaging of their new Wicked doll sent people to a porn site. Traffic to the adults-only website resulted in the highest visitation Wicked pictures. Again, not the regular movies that you might want to see. It's the highest traffic they had experienced in 12 years. Often when these things happen,
good for them.
I think,
it's a boon for them.
Yeah. Rising tides lift all boats. I was thinking, often this happens because they can draw publicity. This is not good publicity because you have a bunch of kids who may have looked at the packaging on these boxes, which apparently are now going for as much as $500 on eBay because everybody wants that packaging. But this is pretty bad for Mattel. What were they thinking? And how do you let something like that get mass distribution to places like Target and Kohl's and Amazon?
You know what I think? Spell check.
Yeah.
I think whoever did it very carefully, and somebody accidentally hit spell check, and it's because, as I understand it, there's just one letter off.
It's a word. The website for the film is Wicked Film or movie, and instead they just did Wicked.com.
So there you go. So that's what I think happened. But in all seriousness, this is really traumatizing.
Oh yeah.
If you're a kid, you're like, what is this? And 9 times out of 10, the kid is opening the box by themselves. So that that scenario is one that just gives me a lot of angst. But I just all I can say is you said that copy editors can find a job. I say collectors are going to get a boon out of this by trying to find all the ones with the wrong thing.
Let's look at some silver lining here.
Yeah. Okay.
First of all, not that I was like, in the name of research, I was like, let's check out this website where people.
Oh yeah, okay.
Now, I'm not going to say that I am a connoisseur. I know how these sites normally work, but in terms of how these pornographic sites can sometimes look on the front end, thankfully this one is not that bad in terms of what you're going to see the moment you type it in. First of all, it prompts you and it says, Are you over 18?
Oh, well, that's good.
So that's good.
Yeah,
Not all of the sites do that.
Yeah.
And even if you say that you are and you go through, what you are faced with first right there on the homepage is not as bad as it could be. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And I do find it like it is, as you say, of course, this is obviously terrible. This is traumatizing. But, aside from that, it is also kind of funny in a way. Like this Wicked Pictures, they're committed to doing essentially parody. It's not just porn, but it's like parody porn of popular movies, like Black Widow or Captain Marvel or stuff like that. So,
or did you get as far as? Because I did a little research too, Edgar.
By the way, this is just a note to the GBH IT department. I was doing research for the show
because you can find some shows some movies like Enchanted or Cinderella or Madam's Family or or Mean Girls. And let's just leave it at that. So
obviously they're gonna do a Wicked one, right? They
I just want to point this out.
Have to.
What does it say that the woman in this group had no interest in going to check out for research sakes what the site looked like?
I don't know what it says, Kelly.
This job is all about being thorough.
Yes. Okay. All righty.
All right. Shall we move this along now?
Let's get out of this segment. Yeah.
So next, Italian police bust an art forgery ring, seizing more than 2,000 works. So this is, you know what? This is not all that surprising because we have talked about fakes and forgeries on the show before, but this is a whole criminal enterprise that has now been exposed in Europe. And again, we have 2,000 works. They figured that if these works had actually gone to market or gone to auction, they would have generated something in the neighborhood of 200 plus million euros in revenue because these are fakes and forgeries of everything from Van Gogh all the way up to a whole exhibition of Banksy's where everything on the walls was fake.
Which is so audacious.
Isn't it? You got to be bold.
This is going to be a great movie, obviously. Because, this is tailor-made for a movie, right?
Yeah. One of the things that just struck me, this is the boldness of it. They actually held an exhibition and auction of some of the fake Banksy works so that they could promote realness, that we really have the goods. And, you just really have to be bold. I'd love to know how the first one was identified and then they were able to, untangle the whole
it's also,
thing,
there's like 6 different workshops where this stuff was happening. There's some auction houses that
and not just Banksy.
Yeah, no. I mean, it was,
right.
This is, Marc Chagall's, Vincent van Gogh's, Jackson Pollock's, Paul Klee's. And, but like, I mean, this is a huge operation.
38 people are under investigation right now.
Which is crazy. But do you know what I find the craziest about this entire story? Is that there is actually now this operation that they've put into place, and they've confiscated a bunch of this already. In Italy, they have an exhibition of the confiscated work in the state archives. So like, it's kind of like meta. It's like 4 layers deep. So they are like putting on an exhibition, the authorities of the work that has been confiscated that was fake before the thing's even resolved.
Well, this is why I think it's so interesting, but it's also pretty chilling because speaking of exhibitions, the Springfield Art Museums years ago did an exhibition of fakes and forgeries, and you see how easy this enterprise can be. Because honestly, all it takes is a really skilled artist. And I have known at least one collector who transports their works from home to home, and so that they don't have empty walls, they have recreations of the work. One of them, this is a collector who has Picasso and works of that ilk, had recreations of that work done.
So they have like a backup copy.
At points, he could not even necessarily be aware, because ultimately it takes this major testing that happens. Did that pigment exist in the 1400s so that you can ascertain its authenticity? So, and we've talked about this before, that I have also learned that there are a number of fakes on museum walls.
Yes, that's right.
And not that museums are knowingly putting them there, but because this has been perpetrated throughout history, it does seep its way into auctions, it does seep its way into museums, and of course nobody wants to own up to the fact that they own a forgery or may have spent all of this money, but this has blown it wide open, and it all started with Modigliani, and if you know the work of Modigliani, they're very simple lines, and it takes just a skilled artist to copy those lines and make the paper look authentic, and there you have it.
So I was also brought to mind Ocean's 8, where they replaced the real stuff with the fakes, and thought to myself, who would know in the museum? Back to your point, Jared. But also what I think that this highlights, which I'm always fascinated by these people, are the art detectives, if you will, who, follow the trail and have the expertise to figure out that the little line from Modigliani is actually not the correct line, or color. I'm just fascinated by how they do that. That's a whole other discussion that I think actually should be more prominent, as even for smaller collectors, not the people who have so many that they have to make copies for their various homes, but just as an understanding of, of people who would want to collect original pieces. If you yourself didn't go and put your hand on it and talk to the artists and whatever, just what to look for.
Yeah, I feel like if I were in law enforcement, I would like to be in like the art forgery department of law enforcement. That feels like it would be a fun job to be
And sometimes the job can be easier because if you're paying $4,000 for a Van Gogh,
that's the other thing.
Maybe it's not real.
The other thing
maybe you're not getting that kind of steal of the century.
The way they were trying to sell this does
maybe you signed it Vigo.
Right. But some of these were heavily discounted, which makes you wonder.
Which is like a giant red flag.
Well, next, it's the kind of headline you'd read in The Onion. The Onion buys Alex Jones's InfoWars in a bankruptcy auction. This was a pretty huge story that broke this week. We learned earlier this summer that InfoWars would be put up on the auction block because, of course, Alex Jones had a major settlement that he had to come up with funds for victims of the Sandy Hook shootings. And he's only worth about $10 million, which means he had to, and I say only $10 million because he was ultimately forced with
$1.5 billion
settlement
in legal damages.
But basically means if you have $10 million, you have to sell everything to at least compensate a portion of that $1.4 billion. And one of the things was putting up InfoWars, all of its social media, even its production studios, and The Onion went ahead and bought it. So here's Ben Collins, the CEO of The Onion's parent company, discussing how he worked with the families of Sandy Hook victims to purchase InfoWars.
The families decided they would effectively join our bid, back our bid, to try to get this over the finish line, because by the end of the day, it was us or Alex Jones. In the view of American life, these people are pure victims, and it's true. Like they've gone through so much, it's horrible. But they're also human beings, and they also like to laugh at things, and they also like fun and good things to happen in the world. And they put their weight behind this because they realized this was a very good prank.
And so he is going to, and they will completely turn this around so that it will still be a satirical site, but anyone who goes there is going to see things like gun control addressed, but in a gun reform sense of mind.
And in the Onion way, which will be, give you a pause to think about it. One thing, we talked on this show about how they were doing a print edition, and if I recall, most of our conversation was like, really? Not sure about that now. In this context, I'm thinking, all of a piece, this could really be quite successful. Because for one thing, there are a number of people who would just like to support it just out of a sense of mission, because they know what these families went through, and they also know what the Onion can do in an interesting way in support of the family. So I don't know now that their whole coming back to life, rebranding, they didn't really rebrand, but you know what I mean, give it a whole new fresh look, could be quite successful, both in print and online, and with this new part of the whole all of the components of what the Onion is now.
Yeah, I mean, as one of Ben Collins, who was an Emerson grad,
yes.
Massachusetts native and Emerson grad, who's the person who is leading the Onion, he was the one who went back to the print edition thing and is now leading the charge in this purchase. As one of his former colleagues said, the Onion buying InfoWars is both good and ridiculously funny. And it's true. And you think about the Onion, and they have a real sense of who they are and what they're doing, and Ben Collins has said, like, look, we're still the Onion. We got our best writers kind of trying to figure out how we're going to exactly treat this and like what's going to make this different from the Onion or our other sites. And he said it's going to be funny. It's going to be like 99% jokes. But then the 1% that's not, and I am reminded of one of the most kind of impactful things that the Onion has done in that realm where they move from pure satire for just fun's sake into real commentary is that famous piece, which they have now run 37 times after mass shootings, which is called "No Way to Prevent This," says only nation where this regularly happens.
Yeah,
right?
Great.
And they have run that 37 times after 37 different mass shootings. And that's making a very serious point with humor.
Well, also, every town for gun safety will have the exclusive sponsorship rights, at least throughout the launch of this. Then, of course, they'll bring in other sponsors for the sites. It's also interesting to think of how this could have gone, because there was no direction once the judge declared that this had to be put up for bankruptcy. So you could have had a huge Alex Jones fan or a huge conservative conspiracy-minded group who are, of course, his fans and followers buy this. They, for whatever reason, didn't have the wherewithal, and the Onion did. They haven't disclosed the price because they're a private company, but this could have gone in any number of ways. And I think one of the interesting follow-ups, too, will be, I don't know how we could measure this, but to see all of the people who did subscribe to InfoWars or who were the fans who might not necessarily realize the extent to which this has changed hands, because we know how much people want to be programmed with the entities that they like and don't necessarily listen to different viewpoints. And suddenly this viewpoint they've relied on is going to change dramatically. Not that it has been in play for some time now, but when it resumes, they'll find something obviously tremendously different.
I think it's important to note, though, this is not. I mean, this seems like it's a done deal, but Alex Jones and his legal team have protested. A judge has ordered a hearing for next week, so there are going to be some I's to dot and T's to cross in this. We'll see what happens. So I'm sure we'll be keeping an eye on it. But
pretty interesting.
All right, well, coming up, it's time for Follow-Up Friday. We'll bring you up to speed on some of the stories we've been tracking on the Culture Show, like, were those disgraced Wicked dolls inducted into the Toy Hall of Fame? That's next. Stay with us.
Elections are over, and women did not break the glass ceiling. How will this play out?
While I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign.
Join politics editor Azita Garamani for a GBH News Forum, Election 2024 Impact, Women in Leadership Respond. Wednesday evening at 6 at our GBH Studios in Brighton. RSVP at gbh.org/events.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and the University of New England, offering undergraduate and graduate programs in Portland, Maine, on the ocean in Biddeford, Maine, in Morocco, and online. The University of New England, une.edu. And H&H, the Handel and Haydn Society, the greatest story ever told in song and Boston's musical holiday tradition, Handel's Messiah, November 29th, 30th, and December 1st at Symphony Hall. Tickets at handelandhaydn.org.
For decades, Okinawa, Japan has had a reputation for longevity, where people live mysteriously long lives. But the reasons may have less to do with lifestyle and more to do with bad record keeping. I'm Carol Hills. The real story about quality of life and longevity in Okinawa. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Horick III. It's Friday, and that can only mean one thing.
It's time for Follow-Up Friday. Follow-Up Friday. Follow-Up Friday. Follow-Up Friday.
Yes, it's Follow-Up Friday, bringing you updates on some of the stories we've been covering, which includes the latest batch of toys inducted into the Toy Hall of Fame. I guess this will now be an annual topic of coverage for us. We celebrated our first anniversary on the air last week, and I remember one of our earliest stories was inductions into the Toy Hall of Fame. And one of the ones that didn't make it in last year has made it in this year, which is My Little Pony, which I think a lot of people are happy to see.
Including you. You're very excited about it.
Well, they may have been big in my childhood. I remember the cartoon. I remember my sister having all the toys in the barn, and I grew up with lots of animals, so it was nice to see. And the other toy I had a lot of was Transformers.
Yeah.
So
all three of these toys being inducted are from the 80s. However, I never heard of Phase 10.
Same here. I was
where was
Phase 10. And
I hadn't heard of it either.
Again, they said
It's
it
a card
launched in
game.
1982, and that the only card game that outsells it in the world is Uno. And I feel like everybody knows Uno.
I've never seen it on a
we should
shelf.
pull the library. Do people here at the library know
do
what the
folks
game
know
Phase 10?
Card game Phase 10?
Not one person raised their hand.
We got one
person raised their hand.
I
was mystified by that.
Yeah,
it's a game like Rummy, apparently.
But I never, to make it to the Hall of Fame, doesn't that suggest that many people played it and loved it?
Does it suggest it should be the trampoline? Which didn't make it in?
Yeah.
So the Hall of Fame only had, right now, I mean, they only have 87 toys in the Toy Hall of Fame. So it feels to me like, obviously there are a lot of toys in the world, so it feels to me like they are still building up their repertoire in terms of what's in the Hall of Fame. But your point, Jared, I think is an important one. I think if you're going to build a Hall of Fame, I think you got to start with the basics, right? You got to get the basics in early. And the fact that, what didn't make it this time, you pointed out the trampoline. Balloons?
That's just stupid.
Balloons didn't make it.
That's like getting an orange for Christmas. A balloon as a toy?
Yeah, of course. A balloon is a toy. That's a basic toy. The stick horse. That should be in the Hall of Fame, right?
Horse,
These old toys. I feel like you got to get those in first.
Yeah.
Then you move on to your Transformers and your Phase 10.
I got to argue with you. Listen, about that balloon thing. That's kind of like wrapping paper. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Here's a box. Isn't that fun?
I don't know. In 1921, what could be cooler than getting a balloon, kid? You got your balloon here, kid. Look at that balloon.
All right, Edgar.
And the kids got the balloon, and they're like, oh, my God, I've never seen anything like
Edgar,
this.
I think they had the rocking horse in 1921.
Well, is the rocking horse in? Did we know?
I don't think so.
I hope the rocking horse is in.
Well, anyway, I'm glad My Little Pony is in, and the Transformers. They've obviously blown up, and I guess I'll look for Phase 10.
Pokemon is not in, but Phase 10 is.
Yeah.
Pokemon didn't. Sorry, Pikachu. Sorry, GoBots. Which fell by the wayside after Transformers.
Yeah.
Well, next, the Golden Bachelorette finale ends with a spoiler alert marriage proposal. But
what?
So I didn't watch any of it. So, Callie, I think maybe you watched it because I think you wanted us to talk about this.
Well, no, because I'm just really interested in the little twist at the end.
What was the
first of all-
twist? Tell us about the
well,
twist.
the twist was that she got down to 2 people, of course.
Yeah.
But there was a third guy, and she was really kind of feeling him, and he told her, I think we should just be friends. And she was like freaked out by it, and it was toward the end. Usually that would come earlier. So, she says now they actually could be friends. She's okay with it, but it was so stunning to her, and she thought that they were heading towards something. So she ended up picking the guy that I think some people didn't think she would. He's from Kansas. They have the same issue as the folks did last year. They live in different cities, though they're talking about building a place in New York where they can, fly in and out of, and they're committed to hanging out. And oh, by the way, the show finished taping in August, and they're still together. So that looks
for
good.
now.
What I read about this is that this was a really wholesome season.
Yes, right.
That there wasn't huge drama. There wasn't a ton of sex. You just had decent people doing decent things and saying decent things, including the guy who walked away because he didn't want to hurt her because he didn't have those strong romantic feelings.
And the other thing that was that the men apparently bonded. All the candidates for her bonded among themselves because they, here they are at a certain age. They don't have all they've lost friends.
And all those
so
studies show like men have a hard time holding on to friends.
So they actually, so a lot of the contestants came out with friends, if not her hand.
I think it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on this from when I think about kind of like a media business perspective, because the one thing that happened here, the Golden Bachelor, which was last year, that was kind of a ratings juggernaut. It did really well. It sort of came out of nowhere to a certain extent. I think did better than people thought. So obviously now you pivot and you do a Bachelorette season this year. In the ratings, it didn't quite do what the Golden Bachelor did. So I think the question moving forward is, whether it was just lightning in a bottle the first time, or, will we settle into some place where as they do more of these seasons, if they do more of these seasons, that, this is kind of the baseline ratings. But it did about half of the viewership throughout the whole thing, including the finale, including average viewership through the
I think there was a lot of newness, so we'll see.
Yeah.
The third year will be
Well,
the
I
charm.
think frankly, some of the speculation was it too wholesome? Was it not tawdry enough for people, so it didn't keep people there?
Well, I don't know. There's let's
like
have
it,
something that's not tawdry on the air. Just,
and a
just
nice
the one
person.
thing.
Nice
Well,
people.
finally, the last element of our follow-up Friday is a big one, something we have been talking about quite a bit on the Culture Show. And the state legislature has passed an economic development bill, which includes a new tax credit to support local live theater productions. We have talked about this. This is something that was supposed to be modeled after the film tax credit, but this was solely for theater. This was solely for theaters who are launching Broadway shows. We see that happen often here. We just saw it happen again with Kristen Chenoweth and The Queen of Versailles, Moulin Rouge, Porgy and Bess at the ART. Before that, a whole string of shows in recent years have gone from Boston to Broadway. This would also be for off-Broadway, for national tours, and then they expanded it, and as long as your production was $100,000 or more, it could also apply to regional theaters who are making productions. So this is a huge injection into, one, the local theater scene, and two, to the industry, because we were losing, like the Hollywood Film Tax Credit, we were losing productions to other states that offered this tax credit, like Michigan, like Louisiana, and like Rhode Island.
Georgia's
so
a juggernaut.
Exactly. So we're about to see a lot, probably, of new theater launching here, and this has always been in a very historic tryout town for Broadway. So it passed both the Senate and the House yesterday. It is up at the governor's office right now. We reached out to the governor this morning, and here is what she and Lieutenant Governor Kim Janey had to say. We're excited that the legislature has advanced the live theater tax credit to incentivize productions to remain in and expand to Massachusetts. This will be good for our arts and culture sector and our economic competitiveness. When our theaters are full, so are our restaurants, hotels, shops, and other businesses, because that's the other major factor here when you have a show that's sitting down for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, not to mention all the work it takes to get them launched. All the area businesses do well, too. So it looked precarious for a while, but when the legislature came back into special session, it survived. And that is our signal for the lightning round. Callie, what's a headline that caught your attention this week?
I just want to give honor to Judith Jamison. She was a dancer most associated with the Alvin Ailey troupe. Very, very tall woman. People who may never have seen the troupe perform have seen pictures of her. She's just elegant and really tall, unusual for a dancer. She's won every dance award. Alvin Ailey took her on as his muse. She worked with him for 15 years. If you've seen the Ailey productions, Revelations, she created the character who carries the umbrella very gracefully, and then later he created a 16-minute solo for her called Cry, which is like just a thing in the dance world. After he died, she left the troupe eventually, and then after 15 years, after he died, she went back and took over the running of it, and it was in debt, and she built it up and got it back in the green and got the audiences coming back. For 20 years she did that work.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, she's just an incredible, both from a manager and from an artist, all of that. Work with everybody across the world, including Baryshnikov and others. I just want to honor her because she was fantastic.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Became synonymous in later years with that company.
Yeah.
Edgar?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Monday was Veterans Day, and the headline that caught my eye is that in Maryland, officially, Harriet Tubman was awarded the rank of Brigadier General in the Maryland Army National Guard posthumously for her work, obviously, with the Underground Railroad. She'd already been sort of recognized in various ways by the Army. I think the U.S. Army and historians have credited her officially as the first woman to lead a combat regiment because she had spearheaded a Union Army raid during the Civil War, among the many things that she did. But she is now there was a law passed in Maryland recently that gave Governor Westmore the ability to give certain awards out posthumously, and so this is one that happened this week. Officially, Brigadier General in the Maryland Army National Guard. Pretty cool.
It's really a great thing. How many times she went behind enemy lines is amazing.
I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, to have this happen now to honor her bravery is incredible.
Yes.
Well, you were both very elegant in your lightning rounds. I am not so elegant because mine is simply to poke the bear, a.k.a. Callie Crossley.
Oh, yes.
And that's because Martha Stewart this week was on the Drew Barrymore show, and I guess I hadn't realized this, even though I see the show every once in a while in our newsroom. I'm not listening, but I see it, and I realize she's awfully close to her guests, meaning not friendship-wise, but she leans
physically
in.
close.
She takes their hands. She pets Oprah on the arm. Well, apparently she tried to do some of that with Martha Stewart this week, and Martha Stewart, who Callie did not have great things.
I detest, but go ahead.
So,
in a word.
Well, now I want there's going to be a dinner party. I'm going to wear this. Art Garfunkel, Jared, you, and Martha Stewart. And the four of you are going to hash out your differences.
Yeah, right.
Well, anyway, Drew began to get closer and closer to Martha. I guess she was asking her what she looks for in a romantic partner, what makes her, quote, soft and gooey, and Martha pushed her away. It was kind of joking, but Martha Stewart was basically saying, I need my personal space. You need to respect this.
I got to
Get
give
away
it
from
to
my
Martha on
Martha-ness.
this one because that would drive me crazy. So I got to give it to Martha. Stop touching people, Drew.
Yeah.
You know, that's just, she's so
I don't
invasive.
know. I'd be okay with it.
She's so
No,
invasive.
I know,
No,
but
she's
if I would
over the top
that's
invasive.
fine. I'm sitting on the couch with Drew Barrymore.
No,
I'd be okay with it, Callie. I got to be honest with you.
No, stay over there. And
That's why we're so spread out on this desk here. We all like our personal space. We all like our Martha-inspired personal space. All right, well, that is it for this edition of The Culture Show. Tune in Monday for my wide-ranging backstage interview with country music star Orville Peck, talking about why the mask he wears is slowly disappearing and how Willie Nelson called him to sing about why cowboys are frequently secretly fond of each other. And on today's GBH mural, as part of our community canvas initiative featuring local artists, we're showing ceramics made by Anna Crowley Nordze. To learn more about how your work could appear on our GBH digital mural, check out the Culture Show website. Callie, what's coming up on Under the Radar?
we're taking a deep dive into the Latino vote, always known as the sleeping giant before, but it awakened in this
Sure
election,
did.
and we're looking at the reasons why and what's up for the future.
And on the Curiosity Desk,
we got some audio stuff we're working on and some little shorts, including we're going to dig into the question. Somebody asked, people are often left-handed or right-handed. Is the same true of animals? Can animals be left-handed or right-handed or left-pawed or right-pawed? So we're going to dig into that. So keep your eyes open for that.
Thanks today to everybody who came down to the library. We appreciate your being here. Also to the BPL technical and logistics crew, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Burke, Juan Jose Cadena, Chris Hanks, Pat Lally, and Olivia Corshio. Also thanks to City Table, the Lennox Hotel, and the Newsfeed Cafe. I'm Jared Bowen. Have an art-filled weekend.
Where's Mary? Where is she? Where is she? She's just about to close up the library.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's art and culture programming.